NFL free agency is here. It hit and it hit hard like it does every single year. Me and Al are here to talk about it. Al, how you doing? You ready for this one?
Awesome, man. Can't wait. Best off season in pro sports, and the NFL showed why again this week.
Yep. And baseball can't get it right. But anyway,
Here, here.
all right. What we're gonna do, the format we decided on is we're gonna just touch on each team. We're not gonna go over, like we talked about before, the backup guard they sign or anything crazy. But we're gonna go over the highlights of each team and who they sign. We're not going to go too crazy because we have 32 teams to go over. So we're gonna hit all the big important stuff, and then maybe we'll go a little bit deeper on each of our own individual teams, the Cowboys and the Eagles, because we are fans of those teams. But we will hit every single team. So let's start. We're going to go right in alphabetical order, if that's okay with you, Al.
Works for me, man.
And the first team, Arizona Cardinals, and their best signings got to sting a little bit for you.
Yeah, man. They had a great signing, and it was one of my favorite Eagles, Josh Sweat. And the writing was on the wall here. I knew he was gone. They have loaded up in the draft for years on that position, and they are not going to give big money to a guy who was going to get that kind of contract. I knew he was going to be out of there, but it does hurt. He's a player I liked a lot, and Arizona got a heck of a player, and he made some big coin, and good for him.
Yep, yep. Um, they also signed Jacoby Brissett,
Yeah,
and
yes,
good. He's a perennial backup throughout the league, but he's one of the better ones, I think.
I agree. One of those solid backups that you know you're at least in capable hands if your quarterback goes down for a couple weeks.
Yep. I see Zay Jones was re-signed. The re-signings, yeah, we don't really need to get too crazy. Is there anybody else on Arizona that you want to touch on? Akeem Davis Gaither, I think, is pretty good. The linebacker they got, maybe not. No, oh, you know who it is? Dalvin Tomlinson. He signed for
Dalvin,
2 years, $30 million.
why don't I have that one? Dang it! What position does Dalvin Tomlinson play?
Um, I think he's a D end. Hang on,
Okay,
I called him up right now. What? Oh, defensive line. Okay. I guess he's like kind of like a nose
okay,
or
cool, cool.
defensive tackle, but I would think it would say defensive tackle. It says DL.
Yeah, a lot of times anymore, like when we were coming up, and even until the last 10 years, it was always defensive end and defensive tackle. Now, especially if they're a 3-4 guy and they can play defensive tackles, they just put defensive tackles across the front three. You know what I mean?
Right.
It
Yep.
could be
Yep.
one of those.
6'3", 325. So I think he's a pretty good signing. I know the name for sure. I think that's a good signing for them. I'm looking at some of the stuff. Yeah, that's a good signing. Anyway, all right, I'm ready to move on to the next team if you are.
Yeah, that's good with me, man. Yep.
Okay, the Falcons.
Falcons didn't do a whole lot. I mean, their biggest signing was like well, I mean, one of the best names in football, and who's also a solid linebacker, Divine Diablo. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that is great.
I mean, his name is basically Divine Devil.
Yeah,
That's wild. What a great name. And then they got Leonard Floyd, who has become one of these guys who signs 1 year contracts and gets 7 to 11 sacks with somebody that year, and then goes somewhere else. So, and
yep, and he's still a solid. He's still a solid player. He was,
very much so. Yeah, I think
like
he had
20
eight or
years ago,
nine
but
sacks with San Fran last year, something like that. If I
yeah,
remember
yeah,
right. Yeah. So, and Atlanta has perennially for years now had a terrible pass rush. So anything they can do to get their sack numbers up is a positive for them.
yeah. I don't see a whole lot. They re-signed a bunch of their players: Mike Ford, Mike Hughes.
Jake
You
Matthews
know,
was the real big one.
oh, you there?
They extend. Oh, did you lose me, Craig? Can you hear me? Hello.
I'm losing you.
Oh shoot. Shoot. I didn't even move the phone. Let me try.
Oh, there you are.
Oh, here we'll try a different spot for the phone then.
Uh, no, no, no. You're gone again.
How about that?
Much better.
Okay. Wow, that was all of 2 inches. Okay, it really matters.
All right. No, I was saying Mike Ford, Mike Hughes. Like those are some of the guys that we were talking about that aren't huge signings, but they re-signed their own players. Those are their own guys anyway.
Yeah, probably the
Um,
biggest thing they did, Craig, was extend their left tackle Jake Matthews for 2 years for 45 million.
yes, yes, I would say absolutely.
That's a
He's
big
a
one.
good
He's a
one.
good player. Yeah.
All right, Baltimore gets DeAndre Hopkins for $5 million a year. The mighty have fallen here. He's really fallen off. I don't know what he's got left in the tank, but he might at least command some attention from defenses to open him up a little bit more. But other than that, DeAndre is pretty much at the end of the rope here, I think.
Yeah, man. He's it's funny because it feels like he's older than he is. He'll only be 33, and there have been people that have been productive in this league at 33 at receiver, but he played 6 games in oh no, wait, no, never mind. I'm sorry, he played 16 games last year. I was looking because I forgot he got traded. So it was splitting it
Yep.
between two teams on Pro Football Reference. So yeah, he's played 17, 16, and 16 games the last 3 years as he enters his 30s. So he's still hanging in there and doing his thing, but his catches have gone down from his epic peak of hundreds of catches a year to 56, and then this year again, well, 56.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. So I think he can contribute. I think he can be a solid, a mentor kind of guy. I've always heard good. I've never heard anything bad about him in the locker room. Um, and listen, everybody's pass receiving stats are going to go down playing with Lamar Jackson. You know what I mean? Because there's 120 catches a year that are going to be rushes for Lamar. So if he can just be a good clubhouse presence, catch 40 to 50 balls, and not drop passes like another third receiver might have done, it's going to be a great addition for them.
I agree. I agree. I think they really didn't do a whole lot. They re-signed a few of their guys. I think their biggest re-signing, or biggest signing, was probably Ronnie Stanley, their tackle, 3 years, $60 million.
Completely agree. Completely agree. That was huge. They had to do it. They couldn't let him go out in the open market. I mean, well, he was on the open market for half a second, I guess, but they got it done. And yeah, no, they needed to keep the blind side protector of Lamar intact. They had to have him. Had to have him.
Yep. Okay, I want to move on to Buffalo because last year
Aha.
they lost so many guys and we were down on them because they lost. And now this year they're going out and signing everybody.
Yeah, man. And not a ton of huge names except for
Joey Bosa.
Bam. And that's big because I'm pretty sure. Wait, let me make sure I'm right about that. But I think they let Von Miller go in free agency.
They did. They did.
Yes.
They released Von Miller.
So they just swapped out a 34 or 5-year old once great pass rusher for a guy who's still in his prime and
Yep.
is injury prone. But if they can get a healthy season out of Joey Bosa, you're guaranteed for double digit sacks. So
Sign Josh Palmer. He's an okay wide receiver. He's not terrible.
yeah, maybe
Um,
this is the team that can finally unlock him because he's a perennial. This guy's going to bust out guy that never does.
yep. They extended Shakir, the receiver.
Love that.
Love it too. And their linebacker Terrell Bernard, they extended him as well. And then the other guy, some guy named Josh Allen.
Yeah. Who I can't believe they would make him the highest paid quarterback in football. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's like he's an MVP or something.
Yeah, I know. It's like he's awesome or something.
6 years, 330 million. Wow.
Yeah, man.
So, in some weird way, that probably opened up more money for them. Because that's what I keep
Yes.
hearing for the Cowboys is they need to sign Parsons this year now because it'll open up money for him.
Yeah, because what the other thing to keep in mind too, and I just read this and it reminded me because I knew this at one point and I always forget that if it says let's just use the Cowboys because you just brought them up. If it says right now the Cowboys, I'm just making up a number. If you want to throw me a real number, feel free, but it's just making it up. Say they have $30 million in cap space right now. If they can sign Micah Parsons to a deal for $40 million a year because that cap number is not as big as the real number.
Right.
So there's
Right.
weird math with cap stuff. There's tricks you can do. There's all kinds of fancy stuff. And the teams that have teams working on the cap are the teams that can handle it better because it's tricky business.
Yep. Yep. Well, speaking of that, Buffalo and Dallas made a small trade. Dallas got Khair Elam, the cornerback, because they lost Jordan Lewis. We'll get to Dallas later. But yeah, so they replaced him. I think he's okay, but I'm pretty sure from what I've read a little bit, he's he's not really a starting cornerback in the league. Really, he's more like a third corner. We'll see. We'll see what they do with him. You never know.
Well, it's an interesting one because, and this is gonna be a theme with trades that both of our teams made, and it's fascinating because our teams moves paralleled each other in an interesting way. Um, the thing about Elam is he was a first round draft pick
Yes,
three
he
years ago.
was.
3 years ago. Now my new favorite thing, this average value or annual value from Pro Football Reference, okay, has him at three his rookie season, one, and then two. So it can't get much worse. However, this is a theme with both of our teams. They are taking shots on guys they valued coming out that are super cheap now. Because what they gave up a sixth rounder for him or something, or swapped sixth
Yeah,
and fifth
they
or
did
something
that
like
with
that.
another guy. There's another guy they signed too. I don't remember. I got it we get to Dallas. I get to him.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing though. He was in the first round pick, and they got him for nothing.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And the Eagles did that too, which we'll talk about eventually too. But yeah, it's fascinating. It's like a little bit of a talent shot in the dark. You know what I mean? Like, let's take a shot at this. We liked him. We saw something. Our guys can coach him up. They couldn't. Whatever. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Love it.
All right, let's move on. The
Here we go.
Carolina Panthers released Miles Sanders and then signed Rico Dowdle from Dallas.
Now,
Little,
go ahead. I'm sorry. This is one I
just a
really want to
three.
talk about, but please continue.
Yeah, just a little $3 million contract. I keep going back to Dallas. We gotta I gotta resist the temptation to talk about him until it's time. But anyway, Rico Dowdle 1 year $3 million. They got Tershawn Wharton, defensive lineman, 3 years $54 million. That's a hell of a signing.
Heck yeah, man. Yeah, he
And
made some money,
then
and that's not a guy I was familiar with. I have to say.
yeah, me neither. And then they extended J.C. Horn 4 years, $100 million for a cornerback.
Yeah, man. I believe I heard that makes him the highest paid corner in football.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, I knew he was a good one, but I didn't, consider him like one of the best, really. But I guess he is.
Well, let's find out what my new favorite tool says about J.C. Horn. Because I'm with you. I knew he was a first round draft pick, and I heard that he was playing well. Oh, that's wild. Okay, so he's been in the league 4 years. First year he only played 3 games, so it doesn't matter. Next year he played 13 games and got a five, which is that's solid, not great, but solid. Next year he got hurt again, only played 6 games. This year he played 15, made the Pro Bowl, and got a six. But you can find there are 25 corners in the league, I bet that, or I'll say this conservatively 15 corners in the league at least that would, on Pro Football Reference, get higher than a six rating for last season. So that's very interesting.
Okay, well they must think he's about to unlock something.
Yeah, he's an ascending guy. He's got great. Like, he's a big corner too, man. He's 6'1", 200 plus, a little over 200. So I mean, he's got everything you want. Maybe they decided last year he's learned how to stay healthy because you know how that happens sometimes with young guys. You see guys that get dinged up for their first 3 or 4 years in the league, and then all of a sudden they play most of the rest of their career. So I don't know. Maybe he's an ascending guy they wanted to lock up. I guess it's an interesting one.
Yep. They re-signed Dalton to be their backup.
Yeah,
Um, they got Patrick Jones. I mean, he's just a solid
yeah,
pass rusher.
solid depth
Um,
guy. Yeah,
yep, Trevon Moehring, pretty good. 3 years, 51 million safety.
yeah.
Um, what it looks like to me here is Carolina. They know they're not ready to really, really compete, but they're starting to lay the foundation now. I think they're just shoring up a lot of their holes with solid, not spectacular players, and then in the draft they can, really go for the gusto. And I think as long as Bryce Young is not a train wreck, they might, they might turn into something here in the next few years. And like I said, I see this free agency this year as laying the foundation down.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. That makes a lot of sense. It
There you
does.
go
And
again. You're a robot again.
what the heck, man? I am not moving in the slightest. What is going on with the reception
There you
today?
go. There you
Oh
go.
boy. So if I hold it with two hands right in front of my face, we're good. All right. Just let me know if it happens again because it's going to be tricky to maintain. So So yeah, man, no, I'm with you 100% on the foundational kind of stuff they're doing. They seem to be doing some smart stuff. Now there's some big numbers flying around on some guys that I don't even know their names and or whether they're that category of player like JC Horn. So they better be right on some of these guys, you know. Tershawn Wharton, by the way, I looked up. He had a breakout year last year with Kansas City. He's been in the league for I think 5 years. Uh,
Okay, so that's
yes,
a good
but
signing. That's a good
yeah,
signing.
he never had more than 2 sacks, but then last year he had 6.5 and only started 10 games. So he's on the rise. Let's get him going. You know, that makes sense. It does make sense. So yeah, no, that's a very interesting thing. And the only other thing I wanted to say about Carolina is I don't know about you, but I was stunned at first when I saw that Rico Dowdle signed there because not only did Chuba Hubbard break out last year and become nearly an All Pro. I mean, he was probably the third best running back in football behind
Well, I'm reading here that Rico is going to be the backup.
well, and that makes sense, but guess who else they have? Jonathan Brooks, who they took in the second round last year.
Oh, that's right. So I don't
And
know.
everybody's, I mean, that guy was dynasty draft darling because he came out with a knee injury, ended up hardly playing last year because he came back and then got hurt again. But so I was like, why would Rico, when he had opportunities this year, sign with a team where the backfield is so clogged? It didn't make any sense. And then I looked it up. He's from Asheville, North Carolina.
Oh, okay.
Makes perfect sense now.
So I guess he'll be unless they're going to go with three backs. I mean, everybody's got three backs, so I guess maybe
Well,
they're just going to have a
yeah,
full rotation.
he'll get carries, but you know, it was a weird backfield to go to if you're looking for the most possible carries. It was like one of the last choices I think most running backs would have made if they were looking for the most carries because they had a guy who established himself with almost 300 carries last year with Chuba Hubbard, and they have a guy they just drafted in the second round right on his heels. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but then once you see where he's from, 2 hours from the Carolina Panthers stadium, and he believes in himself, and I'm sure he thinks he can win, at least half the carries, and good for him. I think he's a hell of a player, so why not? But I don't know if he's better than Chuba. I don't know if he's better than Jonathan Brooks. But it was a fascinating signing, and they are going to run the ball in Carolina.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. Yeah, Carolina's going to be a running team, and you know what the best friend of a rookie quarterback is a
The
running game.
running game,
Yes.
love it, man. Yes,
Okay. And even though he's not a rookie, still young quarterback.
100% with you.
All right. Well, now to another team that is laying the foundation that is really making some moves. That is the Chicago Bears. They didn't make as many moves as some of these other teams, but the moves they made were all really, really important. Of course, they traded for Jonah Jackson, traded for Joe Thuney. They signed Drew Domin at center for 3 years, $42 million.
Yep.
Grady Jarrett, defensive lineman, $43 million for 3 years,
That guy's a
and
really good player.
Deo Odeyigbo. I always forget. I can't remember how to say his name. 3 years, $48 million. Re-signed. What is them with the weird names?
Yeah,
Amin Agbong Bernmiga.
he is
I
the
don't know.
only guy that you can end a prayer with and smoke weed with. He has amen and bong in his name.
Anyway, but I mean, that's a lower side. He's a linebacker. Linebacker only getting $5 million is not,
That's a
you
depth
know,
piece, maybe even a special teamer. Yeah,
yeah. But regardless, the real highlights here are the fact that they shored up that offensive line
agreed.
big time.
Big time, dude. I'm a huge fan of the Bears offseason so far. Huge fan. Talk about foundational pieces like you were talking about with Carolina. I mean, they just improved 3/5 of their offensive line dramatically this offseason. Their center and both guard spots were upgraded significantly. Um,
And I told you they believe in their tackles.
yeah, and I forget. I don't remember who the other tackle is, but we talked in length about their and now I forget his name. That's I stink. But we talked about that tackle that had improved over the years, and they think very high. Tanel something. Tanel. Yeah, doesn't matter. But
Yeah.
he is. They love him. I watched a whole thing about him on either ESPN or the NFL Network. They talked about him for a couple minutes that because they were talking about the Bears improving their line. People think highly of this guy. So they have at least 4/5 of their line in place. I don't know the other tackle. I don't know how they feel about him off the top of my head. But this is huge. I mean, this is absolutely huge. They're giving Caleb Martin everything he needs to succeed, and now we're going to find out if he can play. You know?
Yeah, kind of no excuses now though.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Yep. And he's got the coach. He's got the line, so and he certainly has receivers. I was wrong. I said it on an earlier podcast that Keenan Allen was still going to be there. Apparently he's a free agent. I was wrong about that. But they still have DJ Moore and who's the other guy? Another really good receiver. So they are set.
Yeah, yep. All right, and they're probably going to get Genti in the draft, so they're going to have a good running back too.
That's a I mean that is certainly a especially after shoring up this offensive line, that is
That's
a
what I'm
real
hearing.
possibility.
That's what I'm hearing now is they're going to go after Genti.
It wouldn't surprise me. You know what I mean? I would not do it just because they have DeAndre Swift.
Right. All right. The Cincinnati Bengals. They also did some decent stuff. First of all, they franchised T. Higgins $26 million. A little surprised that they did that because all you heard all off season was or all season was that T. Higgins was going to be a free agent because they weren't going to franchise him, and then they turn around and they did.
Yeah, and I haven't heard a peep from T. Higgins since that happened. And he was pissed last year, and there was a lot of he raised a pretty big stink. And I don't players hate this franchise tag. I mean, it is what it is they have to deal with it. But I don't blame them. You work your whole life to get to be a free agent, and then they slap this thing on you. You can't go where you want. And now he gets it 2 years in a row. Now he also gets $26 million, so I'm not crying any tears for him. But is he going to hold out? Is he going to raise a stink? That could be a big storyline once training camp starts. So let's see what happens there. If they just slap the tag on him, they get him for another year at T. Higgins' full participation. Good on them. They made the right move. But if it becomes a stink, it could blow early season. And who has the most problems in the early season in NFL? Freaking
Yep.
Bengals. You need another thing to think about in the early season. Let's see.
Okay. Well, they also got Mike Gesicki, 3 years, $25 million. They re-signed him.
Yeah, that's a good
Uh,
move. He's a good player.
yep. They also re-signed B.J. Hill, defensive lineman, for 3 years, $33 million.
Somehow
Um,
BJ Hill gets his money, but they can't find money to keep the best defensive end in football this year. Trey
r-
Hendrickson.
right. I don't get it. Anyway, but other than that, yeah, not a whole lot of other big signings. I mean, T.J. Slayton, decent defensive lineman, but that's about it. Do you have anybody else you want to talk about for Cincinnati?
Just one very briefly because they got an Eagle, and it's not a huge signing. It's Oren Burks, who the linebacker they got 2 years for $5 million, like we just talked about with that other guy on the team prior, but on the Bears. But Oren Burks was a really valuable backup last year, and when the Eagles starter got me with my names. When their starting middle linebacker went down with a torn pectoral muscle, I can remember his injury, but it's not his name. That's so sad. But he, um, this guy came in and played the last couple games of the season and through the playoffs and played really well. And he's a guy that could end up being a starting contributor for them for 2 years at $5 million. That's a heck. I was really bummed the Eagles let him walk for that cheap of a deal.
Yep.
And that's all I have on them. I just wanted to bring up Oren Burks real quick.
All right. Okay. Well, let's move on to the Browns. They Brown they did the Browns thing.
They
What
browned.
they do? They didn't really do anything.
They browned. I love that.
I mean,
Well,
they re-signed Miles Garrett for $40 million per year, which is ridiculous money. But then they don't do anything for him. I mean, Dorian Thompson Robinson gets traded, and they just bring in the guy from the Eagles,
Kenny Pickett.
Kenny Pitt. I mean, what the hell?
I
That
love
doesn't do anything. That doesn't do
it.
anything. It's a
I
lateral
love
move.
I love this, okay? Because for the Eagles, not for the not for the Browns. First of all, I have to give them credit for keeping Miles Garrett. It sounded like that was going to get ugly. So, credit to them for keeping one of the best
You're
players
going
in
again.
football.
You're a robot again.
Son of a gun with this thing. Let me try.
You're very robotic.
What?
Yep.
Okay, we're
All right.
talking.
You're back again.
Okay, now I am in one hand and 6 inches above my head. All right. So uh, um, now I'm not exactly taking a beer can in the head like Howie Roseman, but I am working for our podcast listeners today. This Although somebody might open up my front door and chuck a beer at me, you never know. Um, so okay, shoot. Oh, the trade. Okay, so this is fascinating, man. First of all, part of the reason for this trade is what's his name? The backup that established himself for the Eagles last year that I have written down.
Oh yeah, what's his face?
God, I wrote it down too, and now I can't even find it.
Come on. He played
Tanner
really
McKee. Tanner McKee.
yes. He played really well.
He played awesome. So he's now their backup. Dorian Thompson Robinson is going to be their third string quarterback and a fun project. And listen, dude, this guy has tools. I used to call him the three name guys on the Eagles now I know his name. This guy has crazy tools. And if, the Eagles have been quarterback whisperers at time here and there, so maybe they can do something with him. If not, so what? They traded Kenny Pickett, who was never going to play again for them, and they got an interesting project who is making just right at $1 million a year for the next 2 years, which is about as cheap as you're going to get a functional quarterback in the NFL.
Yes. Yep.
So I loved
Uh,
it. Not for the Browns, but I loved it for the Eagles.
so and they also get Malik Collins. I mean, he's more of a name now, but 2 years, 20 million. Not terrible. They signed an edge rusher, but only for 5 million. So that tells you all you need to know about him, which was Joe Tryon Shoyinka.
Yeah, that's good on you for saying that. Yes.
So okay,
Yeah, I don't
that's
have a whole
all I
lot to
got
say.
for the
I'm not
Browns.
super. I couldn't be less impressed with their off season so far, other than retaining Miles Garrett.
Do we want to continue to go in order when we get to our teams? Because my team's next, or do you want to go everybody and then our teams at the end?
Why don't we save them for the end if that's cool with you?
Absolutely. Let's continue then. We'll go to the Denver Broncos.
Ooh, now they did some interesting stuff, Craig.
I mean, Drake Ringlaw right off the bat, 3 million for 35, and then the safety Hufanga, 3 years, 45 million. Evan Ingram, 2 years, 23.
Yep.
He's
DJ
one of those guys that
Jones.
you just got to keep him on the field, Evan Ingram.
Well, that's the whole thing. He
Yeah,
played 17 games a couple seasons ago and caught 190 passes or whatever. It wasn't that,
yeah,
but it was he caught 117, I want to say.
something like that. Yeah.
But he's
You know,
only been healthy for a full season once or twice his whole career.
Yep, and the other big one was DJ Jones. The other one, everybody else was kind of the smaller signings, but DJ Jones was a good one too. Denver not didn't go completely crazy, but they shored up a lot of positions and got some nice quality players. Uh, they're just a team on the rise, and they're making smart moves for good players, and again, kind of laying that foundation for the future as well, and just moving on up. They're going to be better that next year than they were this year.
Like the Jeffersons there, moving on up, man. I agree. This is another one of my favorite free agent periods so far. They did solid things. They didn't spend any, like, you don't see $100 million anywhere on their spend sheet, or even 50. They didn't even spend $50 million on anybody. Well, but they got a lot of valuable contributors, a lot. And I'm a huge Greenlaw guy. I mean, that guy I think, is one of the best linebackers in football. And the only reason they got him for that cheap is because he was coming off an injury. And
Yep.
I think they got a steal. So we'll see how it pans out. But I love that signing.
I do too.
Right on.
Absolutely. I had to get a sip of coffee. Anyway,
All good. I could
um,
have talked for 2 more seconds. Sorry.
yeah, I really really like their off season
Yeah,
for
I'm
sure.
with you. I
It'll be
am very
interesting
much
to
with
see
you.
what they do in the draft.
Right there with you, man. And I am. We have to take special note to compare what they're doing. At least in my mind, I'm taking special note to compare what they're doing, very much so, with San Diego, because they are two teams on the exact same ascending curve right now, and I'm curious to see how they keep up with each other.
Yep. You mean Los Angeles?
Oh, thank you. Dang it. Yes. My franchise references are 1987, when I was collecting. Remember the little plastic helmets you used to get for a quarter at the grocery store in those
Oh my
machines?
God! Yes, absolutely.
I used to carry them around in my backpack at school and bust them out when I was bored in class, which was all the time.
I used to purposely try to go around and collect quarters as much as I could, and just ask, this grandparent for a quarter, the other an aunt for a quarter, my mother for a quarter, my father for a quarter.
Oh,
Get a couple here and there, and then go and get 7 helmets.
100%, dude. That's so awesome. And the entire currency of my 14 and under life was quarters.
Yeah,
You could do so much with a quarter when we were growing up, man.
yeah. Oh, plus you go to the penny candy store, get like
Oh,
stuff for like a nickel.
oh man, you go to the penny candy store, get like enough candy for like, and to send you into a sugar coma for about 30 cents, and then you go to the arcade and you could spend three quarters and play for an hour if you pick the right game.
Yep.
I love it. That's so awesome, man.
And then we used to also get a lot of at the same store, garbage pail kids. Remember the
Oh, I
garbage
love the
pail?
garbage pail kids, man. Yes. Yes. They were the deal, man. They were so gross and raunchy and awesome. I loved them.
Love them.
They were the
All
best.
right, let's resume.
And now out of the Craig and Allen time machine back to the Detroit Lions, I believe, next.
Yes, it is. Detroit Lions. They go and get a good corner. DJ Reed from the Jets, 3 years, $48 million. He was
Huge.
overshadowed by Sauce Gardner, but I got to tell you, I think in a lot of ways, he was better, or at least just as good.
I agree. Listen, this guy is a heck of a player. And by the way, they lost Carlton Davis, who was their starting cornerback. And this is player for player swap. I take DJ Reed every time.
Absolutely, they win in that exchange.
Yes, and even if even if you think that they're similar players, which I think we both clearly agree that DJ we would rather have DJ Reed player wise, you also get a bonus because DJ Reed for the last since 2021 has played 14, 17, 15, and 14 games.
Yep.
Uh, Carlton Davis, and I have to pull it up real quick, but check this out, and this is why they were willing to let him walk and go after DJ.
Oh, he got hurt a lot.
He has never played more than 14 games in a season, and that hasn't happened since 2020. And he's averaged about 12 games a season since then. So you're guaranteed the guy. I saw a guy was like, yeah, they got Carlton Davis. I forget. Well, it'll come up eventually who got him. I don't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, they got a good player, but you got to factor in that he's going to miss at least 5 games a season every year. So you
Yep.
don't have to do that with DJ Reed. So that's a player for player swap. I take DJ.
Absolutely. They re-signed their own guy, Derek Barnes, Marcus Davenport, and they let Zadarius Smith go, which I think it might be a little, that might sting a little bit, but not terribly. And then they released a linebacker too, Jalen Reeves-Maben. Overall, an okay signing period. They lost some players too. I gotta like to me, a lot of the elite teams lost a lot of good players. Like a lot of the elite teams, in my opinion, kind of came back to the pack a little bit
Yeah, and that happens every,
across the
it
board.
really it does happen, all the time. It happens with every Super Bowl team ever. I mean,
Right?
remember do you remember Larry Brown?
Yeah. Oh, well, of course.
Larry Brown, who got the craziest contract ever because he had a good Super Bowl game, and I think the Raiders signed him
He
for a
made he
mint.
made two interceptions that I could have made because they were right to him.
Exactly, and then the Raiders made him a million. Gave him generational wealth.
Yeah, and he was what he has always been, which is an average cornerback, and that's what he was.
Exactly. There's a couple guys that because the Eagles got pillaged pretty good this offseason, and there's a couple guys that I'm going to really miss and that I'm sad about, and there's a couple guys that I'm like, good luck with that. You know what I mean? Because they gave them a
Right.
lot of money for guys that
Right.
may have
The
been doing
difference,
things because they're surrounded by such great players.
yes, the difference for me this year is that it seems like usually, like you said, the Super Bowl teams and maybe one or two others.
Hmm.
But to me, it seems like almost every good team took a step back this year in the free agency. Like I said, across the board, every good to great team is not as good as they were before free agency started.
That's interesting. Yeah, I'd have to think about that. I'm not sure. That's an interesting
Like
point,
I,
though.
I like I like some of the Detroit signings, but they lost a lot of players too. Again, I don't have that list. But either way,
It'd be nice if
um,
that we could find that nicely and easy on the internet. You think you could, but we couldn't.
you would literally have to go team by team, like type in Detroit Lions free agency and or free agency tracker or something, and you can just get that. You gotta literally go to the team site, and they'll have that information. But we can't go to 32 team sites here. It will be
No,
on
that's
here.
yeah,
We'll be on
yeah.
here for 4 hours.
If we're trying to set a record for podcast length, we could do that.
Yeah. So anyway,
Nice. Yeah,
um,
that's cool though. That's an interesting theory, man. And I'd have to look at it more and think about it. But I get where you're coming from for sure. That's interesting.
well, here's another example. Green Bay, really, good team last year. I mean, they signed a guard, Aaron Banks, for 4 years, 77 million. They signed cornerback Nate Hobbs, good signing, and they re-signed their kicker and linebacker McDuffie. But that's all they did, and they lost some players too. I think, in my opinion, they got some good. You know what? I don't know if they took a step back per se, but I think they're just they moved laterally. And again, I don't remember everybody they lost, but they got hit as well, and they try to get back a little bit, and they did a decent job. Aaron Banks is a good player,
Oh, absolutely.
and so is Nate Hobbs.
Absolutely.
So
And I just found the players they lost. And I would make a case that they did not take a step back when I found this list because, and tell me what you think, because I don't know how. Listen, we're going to get to this guy when we get to my team. I can't believe they signed him, but they lost A.J. Dillon, which I don't think anybody's worried about. Now, these
no,
next three guys I don't know very well. Maybe you can tell me they're better than I know about. Josh Myers, their center, T.J. Slayton, defensive tackle, and Eric Stokes, cornerback. But
okay,
that's
well
their entire
they
players lost list, according to the
oh
Milwaukee.
okay, well the cornerback they replaced with Hobbs, and I think Hobbs is an upgrade.
I would agree. I would agree.
So and
Um,
maybe Banks can play center.
and I
He's
don't
listed as a
know.
guard, but I don't know.
Let's see if I don't even know if Josh Myers was their starting center. Let's see. Boom, boom, boom.
So yeah, if anything, they might
He
maybe
was. He
they
was. So yeah, they did lose a starting center, and he was rated pretty highly. So that is a real loss for sure.
Okay, so they moved laterally, or maybe improved slightly. So definitely not a step back like I think with some of the other teams. Um,
But there's a good case to be made. I see where you're coming from, and it would be interesting maybe in a future pod, maybe after the draft, we can look at something. I don't know how we do it exactly. We can talk about it off air, but we can try and do something like who actually moved forward, who stayed lateral, and who moved back in the off season once the draft. We know everything that happened pretty much after the draft.
all right,
That could be kind of interesting to try and do, or maybe
all
we
right,
even just do it with our division or something. I don't know. We can figure it out.
definitely we have to talk about this next team for the second straight year went absolutely bananas. Oh my God, Houston Texans.
Yes.
They signed Sheldon Rankins 1 year, Daryl Taylor 1 year, Lakin Tomlinson 1 year, all 1 year deals. Tremont Smith 2 years. Braxton Berrios a year. Justin Watson, he's not a big signing, but they traded for C.J. Gardner Johnson,
Huge trade.
and they traded for Christian Kirk.
And they got him for a seventh rounder. So they have to pay him the contract he signed with the Jaguars, which was everybody knew was an overpayment at the time. And then he went out and had a really good first season and then didn't do too well the next two. But he's a valuable contributor for them. I think that was a nice little pickup for a seventh round draft pick.
Absolutely. Resigned Mario Edwards. They resigned some other backup guys. They did lose Laramie Tunsil, Shaq Mason, or they released Shaq Mason, and they
Now you want to make a case that good teams getting worse. Here's one for me because I like some of the trades they made. I like Christian Kirk. I like C.J. Gardner Johnson a lot. But all these other signings, there's not a single guy that's like a real impact player. I heard a guy make a case that the Texans improve their roster more from player 30 to player 53 than any other team in free agency, which I thought was an interesting and fun way of putting it.
So what you're saying is they have some depth, but they didn't improve their starting lineups too much.
And they gave away basically, well, they got the most compensation in a trade this offseason so far was their Laramie Tunsil trade. But they had, what was the biggest problem with the Texans last year? They couldn't keep CJ Stroud on his feet, and he regressed in year two because the talk all last year was how bad that offensive line was. The one player everybody unanimously agrees was good on that offensive line was Laramie Tunsil, and they traded him. and they did nothing to replace him that I see.
Yeah, Lincoln Tomlinson's not going to replace him. And they also Kenyon Green is another guard. Uh, I think he was a starter,
He was.
and he got traded as well. And Shaq Mason was a guard, and he got released.
They got rid of 3/5 of one of the worst offensive lines in football.
They do
And
have a lot of draft capital, so they might do something at the draft.
yes, and it's going to be, but they're going to be young. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like they've got no anchor. You know what I mean? That could have been Tunsil, but they got a lot for Tunsil, so I do understand that was they got a whole host of second day picks out of that. It was a pretty good trade for compensation wise, but it makes sense because they gave up a left tackle in his prime. You don't see that happen very often. Um, so I don't know. I'm a little mystified by what they're doing. I love the CJ Gardner Johnson trade. We'll get into the Eagles end of it when we get to the Eagles, but that guy's a hell of a player. He's very polarizing. He's polarizing within his own locker room when he's there because he's a loudmouth and he talks a lot. But he's also loved by most of his teammates, and he's a winner. So they got a hell of a player. We'll talk about the Eagles end of it when we get there. I think it's a really interesting guy they got, but the for player in the trade, Texans win right now.
yeah. All right, let's go move on to the Colts.
Oh, now this is gonna be. I can't wait to talk about this too.
Yeah, safety Cam Bynum, 4 years, 60 million. It's a good signing.
Big time, big time.
Charvarius Ward,
Another
three
big
years,
signing.
60 million, huge. They, I don't know Gallimore too well. He only got 1 year, and they signed Khalil Herbert for a year as well. Re-signed Ashton Doolin, but Daniel Jones gets
Here we go.
$14 million. Is he going to be the starter?
I think there's a really good chance. I mean, they are going because that regime drafted Anthony Richardson, so they're going to give him every opportunity, and he's shown enough. He's shown enough in his at his best that they know if they can unlock his best, they've got something. But he's also been bad enough that the door is wide open for the taking. And I think by week 8, I think you have a real good chance that Daniel Jones is maybe even by week 4, you have a real good chance that Daniel Jones is your starter for the rest of the season. And that's how little I think of Anthony Richardson after 2 years in the NFL to say that.
Yep, yep. I agree. I agree. I can definitely see Daniel Jones for impressing them in training camp and just taking that job.
If if they're excuse me, I just choked on water. If they're willing to let him do that, I think there's a real better than 50% chance. But I just don't know that they'll give him that opportunity.
Right, right. All right. A team that sometimes they're a little, I don't know what to think of them, and sometimes their decisions are a little questionable. Jacksonville.
perfect, perfect introduction to that team, Greg. Perfect.
Yeah, the offensive lineman Patrick McCarry, I believe is how you pronounce it. That's a
Yeah,
good signing. They took Jordan Lewis from Dallas. Um, he's not a spectacular corner, but he's solid as a rock. It's going to hurt to lose him, in my opinion, for Dallas because again, he wasn't Trayvon Diggs or I always forget the other guy's name, the guy who got all the interception.
yeah. Oh, geez.
Oh, jeez,
Look at us. I mean,
they're terrible, just terrible.
I'm
Um,
with you though. I know exactly who you mean.
um, but Jordan Lewis was the third corner, and he was just solid. He's a solid corner. Um, Robert Hainsley, offensive lineman. They signed Nick Mullins. I mean, just kind of all of them are kind of like ho hum kind of deals. Like, there's nothing here that's jumping off the page that like, oh, Jacksonville's going to be a lot better. There's nothing. Maybe they got like a little more solid backups and like more depth and just solid across the board. But they released Evan Ingram. They released Devin Duvernay, Ronald Darby.
Yeah,
Um,
this team was bad and got worse.
it's
It
an
looks like.
underwhelming free agency for them.
Yeah, I agree completely. I don't know
You're a
what
robot.
dang it. Oh shoot, you know what? I forgot I set the phone down and didn't get lucky. Is that better?
Yep.
Nice. Um yeah, this organization stinks. Eh,
Yeah. Yeah.
like I talk. There are certain organizations that just can't get out of their own way. The Bengals have been one of them. Even I don't know how they've managed to get. They got Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. That's how they've managed to get where they're in even in the conversation of interesting teams every year. But generally they stink. The Raiders stink. The Jacksonville Jaguars stink, and they might be the worst right now. I don't know. And Duval, we'll see if that's going to help.
Oh God,
I mean,
Duval.
one of the weirdest opening press conferences ever. Um, so I don't know, man. They are a mess, and I don't see this offseason making them any better. Really,
No,
I mean, and Jordan Lewis, by the way, who listen, solid player. I have nothing against Jordan Lewis, but they go out and they sign it. I didn't realize he's going to be 30 years old this season.
oh yeah, he's been around.
I didn't realize he'd been in the league since 2017. I mean, it feels like he's been around for a while, but I didn't realize it was quite that long.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, they're arguably their best signing is a 30-year-old cornerback.
Yeah. Yep. I would say. All right.
Yeah,
Let's move on to the Chiefs. A couple of good signings: Jalen Moore, tackle, 2 years, 30 million. Christian Fulton, 2 years, 20 million. Cornerback. Elijah Mitchell. That's interesting. Um,
very interesting.
Robert Tunyon at tight end. That's weird. Um,
Yeah, I
it's just
agree.
weird. They re-signed Nick Bolton, 3 years. Marquise Brown. What did Marquise Brown show them that they chose to re-sign him?
Listen, Marquise Brown is just an average NFL receiver, and that's all he's ever going to be. I mean,
And yet he's never on the field.
I agree 100%, 100%. They now have a team of people of receivers that other than the rookie this year, Xavier Worthy, prove they can't stay healthy. You've had the who's the guy that's going to come back that was who's the guy that
Oh,
was missed all last year?
Rice? No,
Yes, Rasheed Rice. Thank you.
Rasheed Rice. Thank you.
So he's now had injury issues. Marquise Brown has had injury issues his whole career, and I thought they were going to be in because we did the Holly the Marquise. Gosh, dang it, the Xavier Worthy thing that came out last week. I was like, oh my god, they're going to have another receiver suspended. But then it came out that he was dealing with some psycho woman, and it was all on her. So thank
Yeah, so
goodness
he'll be there.
yeah, he had like photographic evidence of him getting his dread. He has no more dreadlocks because of that woman.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
he like literally has photographic evidence of his hair getting ripped out by the root. So thank goodness we don't have another scumbag in the league. It was just a weird circumstance.
Yeah. Kansas City franchise tagged Trey Smith for 23 million. They traded Joe Thuney, as we said. Um, it's a decent offseason. They lost some things. I do like the Jalen Moore and Fulton signings. Elijah Mitchell is kind of whatever, but I don't see them markedly better. I don't see them
Listen,
markedly worse. They kind of were just lateral, I think.
if I would actually go on the side of taking a slight downtick, and I'll tell you why. They retained Hollywood Brown, which you and I are not big fans of. They retained Nick Bolton, huge fan of that, one of the better linebackers in the league. Love it. They managed to keep Trey Smith, one of the best guards in the league, but to do it, they had to trade another one of the best guards in the league, Joe Tooney. So now the Jalen Moore thing. Not that I have anything against Jalen Moore per se, but here's the thing. They have tried a couple different things the last couple of years to address this tackle situation, and they have failed every time. They gave huge money to that guy from Jacksonville last year, who was a right tackle in Jacksonville, who they were convinced would be their left tackle. He failed at left tackle, was even mediocre when they put him back to right tackle.
Yep.
And now they get this guy, Jalen Moore, who, if we go to our little pro football reference rating thing, he started. He was a starter for the last 3 years for San Francisco, but his AV in those 3 years is 2, 2, and 3,
Yeah,
which
that's
is
not that's dreadful.
so. It's a guy you're taking a shot on, and you're hoping you can coach up. You know what I mean? And it's not a fix for the woes of Patrick Mahomes here. So it's a shot. It's a shot. It might work, but it's dicey. So they didn't fix their biggest issue to me, and that's a problem. I actually kind of like the Elijah Mitchell signing. That if that dude, I don't know if he'll ever stay healthy again, but the one year he did, he was electric for the 49ers. And you know that some chief running backs have had some opportunities in that offense over the years, so maybe he can catch something along the way. But it's a shot in the dark.
Yep, yep. All right, let's move on to that other terrible team, the Raiders.
Yeah, perfect.
Um, I don't really almost don't see almost anything. Max Crosby, 3 years, $106 million. They extended their safety a couple years, and Malcolm Kuntz, the edge rusher, for 12 million. And the biggest thing they did was they traded for Geno Smith.
Yeah.
So I guess he's going to be the starter.
Yes, he will
Um,
definitely. And I would not rule out them still drafting Shador Sanders or somebody either.
right, but I mean, their other signing safety Jeremy Chin,
He's a
three
good
years,
player.
16 million. Yeah, he's okay. He's pretty good.
He's a good player,
Alex,
and they took him from the Commanders, so thank you.
yes, Alex Kappa, 2 years. So
That's the good guard the Bengals let walk for because they have issues. so
yeah,
so they got two decent players, but the rest of it is very uninspiring, except for keeping Max Crosby and trading for Geno Smith.
well, they also got Raheem Mostert.
Oh, that's right, because my list was from yesterday. That's right. Um, who if he gets more than 75 carries this year, I'll be stunned. But
And he's
yeah,
also, yeah, he breaks too.
yes, and he's also like 35 now or something crazy. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
And
I
they
wonder how old
released
is he actually.
Gardner Minshew.
Yes, which I heard about weeks ago, and I guess just became official.
Yeah. Um, Not awe-inspiring, not as bad as I thought it was going to be when I first looked at it. Because the Geno Smith, he should solidify the quarterback position at least.
Yeah,
And
he's a professional quarterback.
And I like Mostert enough to think that he can help in the backfield, and that means they should have a solid running game with everybody contributing. And of course, you gotta love, you love Max Crosby, and you know, Alex Kappa, decent. Jeremy Chin, decent. Um, so not terrible. I don't think. Do you think they improved, or do you think they were more lateral? I don't think they took a step back.
No, no,
I
no.
think
I
it's
think it's a little lad. I think they got two quality starters in Jeremy Chin and Alex Kappa. I think Raheem Mostert can and let's listen. Let's just not forget the impact of Sincere McCormick in the second half of the season last
yes,
year. So it's gonna be a battle for the ages between a 33-year-old Raheem Mostert and Sincere McCormick for touches in that backfield, man.
absolutely.
I love
Um,
that. So
I
yeah, I'm
think
with you. I think they kind of maybe stayed a little lateral, and the draft is gonna be huge for these guys because they're not gonna be really good for a while. They need to
maybe
get
they're
young guys.
yeah, maybe a slight uptick. I might even
I
say
would
that
agree
it
with
was a
that.
slight uptick.
I would agree with that.
All right, another team that we do like also on the rise, the Chargers. Um, yeah, I like everything they're doing.
They didn't do a ton though. They kept a lot of their guys, which is big. They brought back Khalil Mack. They extended a bunch of dudes. For some reason, they like Jalen Rager, which I'll never figure out. they, they kept Jalen Rager, the guy who was drafted over Justin Jefferson, by the way, for a reminder for our listeners,
Yeah,
by the Eagles. The last pathetic move Howie Roseman made before he became a Hall of Fame GM. And
yeah,
and they made two moves that I like. Dante Jackson is a solid corner who they got for cheap, and I think, listen, Najee Harris. I will be drafting in my fantasy leagues this year. This guy is going to have a year. They will give him the ball a ton and he will run, 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 run. He did pretty darn well for a Steeler team who had a really pathetic offensive line the whole time he was there.
yeah,
I don't think
yeah.
he's great, but I think he's good. And you just have to be good in a Jim Harbaugh offense to perform because he's going to get the ball a ton.
I tell you, I like Jackson. I like Harris. I like even Mike Williams can contribute.
Yeah, Mike
Um,
Williams coming back. Yeah,
yeah, Khalil Mack. Like you said, Rager. They did release Gus Edwards and they released Joey Bosa, but Edwards got replaced obviously with Harris, so that's an upgrade.
big upgrade.
Um,
Yep.
yeah, and Bosa will be missed, but he's getting on there a little bit, and they did bring back Mack at least. I don't know. I don't. Don't think they took a step back. I don't think they took a. It's kind of more lateral for me. I think maybe even a slight upgrade.
What I
That was
will
fun.
say, and I would say lateral at best for me, but I would also say Broncos, the team I wanted to compare them to, significantly better.
Right. Yes. They have to
Significant.
catch up a little bit. Yeah.
Yes. So let's see where it lands after the draft. But for now, edge to the Broncos.
Yes, I agree with that.
Right on. Very cool.
Okay, the Los Angeles Rams. We thought for sure Stafford was gone, and then he wasn't.
He wasn't. That was a big surprise. They got it done.
Yep. They re-signed Garoppolo for the backup. Tutu Adwell. Cooper Cup is released.
Yep.
They traded their guard Jonah Jackson. They re-signed. Then they went out and signed Poona Ford, the defensive lineman, for 3 years, $30 million,
Yep.
and Devontae Adams, 2 years, $46 million. I think that's an overpay. I think Adams is showing signs of slowing down, but he should be on the field. You think a little bit more than Cup, and I think that's kind of their thinking. It was one or the other. They weren't going to sign them both. They weren't going to re-sign Cup and get Adams. And I think they just chose Adams over Cup because Cup, has a lot of trouble staying on the field.
Yeah, yeah. And I think Cup's a couple is Cup older? I think he's a year older than him or something. Like it's close. But I can't find their ages easily. That's funny. It didn't show it to me there. But here's the other big difference. Devontae Adams is still playing at a very high level. His like if we just go by this rating thing, which again I don't know how much it means at this point, but at his peak he was putting up 16s. Okay. He had a run where he went nothing less than 8 from 2016 to 2023.
Yep.
And this past year, he was a 10.
Okay. So yeah, he's still getting it done.
Yeah. And he played 14 games where Cooper Cup, I think, played about 8. So
Right.
you're getting I'm pretty sure you're getting slight. Oh, here, yeah, he'll be 32. He'll be 33. Devontae Adams going into this season. I think I saw Cooper Cup will be 34, but I could be wrong about that. Don't hold me to it. So you might be getting. I think you're getting slightly younger, and you're getting more healthy, and you're getting better production at this age. So and listen, big credit to Devonte Adams for figuring out how to stay fully relevant, football and fantasy wise as he's entering his age 33 season. Because I didn't think it was going to happen. I thought he was going to end up going somewhere, and having to split with a few other guys and this and that. But here's like he could end up being a number one fantasy receiver for at times this season, because Puka Nakua hasn't proven he can stay healthy yet. There
Yeah.
could be stretches of the season where Devontae Adams is the number one receiver with Matt Stafford.
Yeah. What a
Very,
combination.
very interesting, isn't it?
Okay.
Love it.
We are
All
on
right.
to Miami,
Okay.
who was very underwhelming for me.
I agree.
They did not do. They signed a bunch of players, but they're all depth pieces. Nobody, I mean, other than James Daniels, guard James Daniels, 3 years, $24 million. That's a good signing.
Yep.
But then you got Zach Wilson, Tyler Dodson, Melifonwu, um, some of these names, Westbrook,
Uh,
Akine,
yep. Yep.
Ashton Davis, KJ Britt, Larry Borum. They signed all those guys, but nobody is more than 2 years, $8 million. Everybody else is 1 year, 2 million, 1 year, 6 million, 1 year, 4 million. I mean, nobody's making big money because these guys are depth pieces. They re-signed Elijah Campbell for another million, Quinn Bell for $1 million. They didn't. The big signing was James Daniels, 3 years, 24. That's a good signing, but it's literally just the one. And then they released Raheem Mostert.
Yeah. Yeah.
Underwhelming.
Very underwhelming. Very underwhelming. Um, Nick Westbrook Akine is an interesting guy because he did the best impression of Chris Carter since Chris Carter, because all he did was catch touchdowns last year. He
Yep.
he he had 60 targets, which that can't be better than 50th in the league. It's probably lower than that. And 32 catches for 497 yards, which is 15 and a half yards a catch, and 9 touchdowns.
Wow.
Now, the odds of that carrying over and meaning anything to any other year in his career are very slim.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I just it just cracked me up that he had that Chris Carter like year this year. But I'm with you, man. Incredibly underwhelming. moves for the Viking or for the Vikings. Where did that come from? From the for the Dolphins and Zach Wilson. If I hope are did they really just sign Zach Wilson to be the primary backup for the most injury prone quarterback in football?
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. You have Tua at cornerback, who literally couldn't, sadly, have his career ended at any play in the whole season.
Yeah,
And all you've got left is Zach Wilson. That's not good.
I can't believe they did that. I mean, I get somebody like Sean Payton last year in Denver taking a shot on him because they had the rookie they liked, and Sean Payton thinks he can coach anybody up, and understandably so. And so take a flyer on him, see what you have for a year, and then you let him walk or not. And you hope your rookie's good in the meantime. And their rookie was freaking awesome, and Bo Nix was great. And on the hit the road jack with Zach Wilson. But I can't believe somebody with an injury prone quarterback made them their primary guy. That's crazy to me. I can't believe it.
Yeah.
Stunning.
All right, let's move on to the team you just said, the Vikings.
Ah,
Um, Big signings here.
big.
Will Fries, 5 years, $88 million. Jonathan Allen, the defensive lineman, 3 years, $60 million. Even the center, Ryan Kelly, 2 years, $18 million. Isaiah Rogers at corner, $15 million for a couple of years. Javon Hargrave, 2 years, $30 million.
Yeah, these are some
Um,
big names, man.
and then they re-signed Byron Murphy, the cornerback, for $66 million.
Yeah, how about that?
Re-signed Aaron Jones for $10 million a year.
That was
Um,
that was one of the most perfect fits and most sensible signings of any team, anywhere, and player.
yeah, and Theo Jackson, the safety, they re-signed him too for $12 million. Just I love it. I really love all these signings. Minnesota, in my opinion, improved big time. The problem is, who's their go? Is it are they just going with McCarthy? Is that just it, or I know they're getting connected once again to Aaron Rodgers,
Which we might as well dive into that for a quick second because one of the three teams we're hearing are the Vikings, the Giants, and who's the other one?
the Steelers.
The Steelers. Now, there's there's one team that's clearly out if he wants to win. That's the Giants. If he wants to stay in New York, there you go. But he's not going to win. So, does he want to play for Pittsburgh or Minnesota if he wants to win? And is Minnesota really in this thing? I'm not 100% sure. I hear Brett Favre's trying to talk him into it, but I don't know. I haven't heard anything from Minnesota saying we're interested. So not that they would, but Pittsburgh makes the most sense to me because they clearly have a need. They don't have a rookie that they supposedly like, or a second year player now that they supposedly like that was drafted in the first round last year. So that to me is where I'm gonna call. But I don't know, man. I really don't know. What do you think?
I think it's Pittsburgh.
Right on, right on.
It's,
It's tough to get inside the mind of Aaron Rodgers, so you could always get a really interesting left turn somewhere along the way.
yeah,
But
and he sends this out on purpose because he likes people talking about him.
yeah, for sure, for sure. And
He's
hey,
such a he's a narcissist.
yeah, man. Well, you don't hang out with Pat McAfee, every week if you're not a narcissist.
Right. Um, I agree.
I love Pat,
But
but
but yeah, it's interesting. I think it's Pittsburgh because if you want to win, that's a better spot than the Giants. And like you said, Minnesota's got McCarthy. They're going to have to go with him at some point. Um,
does he
and I
want
don't
that breathing down his neck from day one in the signing?
right. So I think it's Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
But that
I
means
agree.
Minnesota needs somebody though in case McCarthy isn't ready or completely flames out.
Could that be Kirk Cousins? Is he actually going to be the backup next year in Atlanta?
Man, I don't know. I don't like that. We'll have to see. We'll have to see what they do.
There's no way he goes back to Minnesota. There's no way.
I don't think so.
Yeah, it would be to be too weird.
All
Right
right.
on. Good stuff. Okay, cool. All right. Yeah, and I'm with you on Minnesota, man. I think they made some great signings. That guard signing is a Will Freeze or
You're a
Fries or
robot.
however you say
You're
it.
you're a robot again.
Dang robot. Any better? Any better? Any better?
Nope, nope, nope.
Wait, let me go back to position
There
one.
you are. There you are.
Hey, that's where we started. Back to where it all began, just like the Allman Brothers. Sweet, let's go.
Okay, let's go
Uh,
to the Patriots.
all right, sweet. Oh, okay. Talk about one of the biggest off seasons so far.
Yeah, Milton Williams, defensive lineman, 4 years, $104 million. Carlton Davis III, cornerback, 3 years, $60 million. Harold Landry III, 3 years, $43 million. Robert Spillman, 3 years, $37 million. Morgan Moses, the tackle, 3 years, $24 million. Bring back Matt Collins, a wide receiver.
One of the
Joshua
best
Dobbs.
characters in football.
Yep, Joshua Dobbs. Traded their defensive lineman Gacha, and David Andrews. They released, and also re-signed Austin Hooper. That's everything
Yes.
they did. But there's some big numbers, big names, big time players here. It seems to me like the Patriots are, they're kind of going for it.
Yeah, they are. They had the most cap room in football by a lot. Like it was, they had like over. If again, people, reporters have proven to me time and time again that they don't understand the salary cap. I don't. I'm not going to pretend I understand it because the information I'm reading clearly doesn't understand it either. But according to everything I read, they had the most money available, and it was by a lot. So, and they spent it, and they spent some. They made some good. They got some good players. Milton Williams is a very good player, but
Yeah,
it's really interesting. He got a massive contract, Craig. Here's his AV on Pro Football Reference. He didn't play much his first two seasons, had a 2 and a 1, and then last 2 years a 4 and a 5. So now that is good, but it's not great, and it's certainly not $100 million great. His He has 11 and a half sacks in 4 seasons, 5 last year, and he had a hell of a postseason, and he's a good player. But keep in mind, he was doing all of this playing beside Jalen Carter,
right.
who was getting triple teamed at times this year. So I like him. I think he's a good player, and I would have loved for the Eagles to keep him, but there was no way they could give him that kind of money when they knew he would have been at best. He was probably by the way, he was the third best defensive tackle on the Eagles this year, behind Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis.
Yep, yep, yep,
So I would love to see him go there and get 5 to 8 sacks a year for the length of that contract for the Patriots. But I'm curious to see. He's the one that's going to have to be the Jalen Carter now, and I'm not sure if he's that good. We'll find out.
yep. I like the Carlton Davis signing.
It's interesting because this is the guy we were talking about that the Lions let walk so they could get DJ Reed,
Yeah, and
and
we
he's a good
said
player.
Reed is probably better, but Davis, he's not terrible. But again, you don't know if he's worth 3 years, $60 million. It's a lot of money.
Injury prone is the thing with Carlton Davis. He has averaged roughly 10, 11 games a season for most of his career.
And
Um,
Morgan Moses, isn't he 1,000 years old?
Yes, I believe I want to say he's going to be 35 going into this next season. Let me make sure if I'm right about that because he was on the Jets last two
Yeah.
years. Morgan, he got traded from the Ravens, or maybe it was last year he got traded from the Ravens, I should say. Yeah, he's 34, and his birthday's March 3rd, so he'll be 34 this season.
Okay, he just turned 34.
Yeah, so he's a young 34. um, yeah, that's really interesting. So, okay, now before we leave this Carlton Davis thing, though, now they got Carlton Davis, who we both agree we would rather have DJ Reed than Carlton Davis. But Carlton Davis is a good player, but injury prone, right? Now they spent 3 years, $60 million. DJ Reed went to who signed him again? Why am I blanking?
Detroit, right?
Detroit. Thank you. And Detroit, if I remember right, got him for significantly less. 3 years, 48 million.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
That's because here's where it makes sense. Because I remember this with the Eagles when they sucked in the late '90s. When you suck, you have to pay more to get good players.
Right, right. Okay, yeah,
It's the crappy team tax.
yep. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
It's like the Oakland A's had to pay whoever they paid $60 million for that one guy this offseason.
Who did
The Oakland A's, or the whatever they are now, the minor
the
league,
the Athletics?
the Athletics.
They don't have a city designation.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that's what they're doing. They're just the Athletics. Oh my god, that's great. Talk about organizations that are in a bind with their ownership.
Yeah, they got Luis Severino.
That's who I was thinking of. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyway, I like the Harold Landry in. I said Spillman, but that's not right. Robert Spillane.
Yes, like Mickey Spillane. Yes,
Yes, 3 years, 37. An edge rusher and a linebacker for that defense in a corner. The corner if he can stay on the field. Uh, Milton Williams. We don't know if he can do it, but got big money. Morgan Moses can still get it done at his age. And you got Dobbs as a solid backup. Dobbs is actually a really solid backup in my opinion. Um,
agreed. I agree.
he's one of the better ones. And Austin Hooper's a solid tight end. I think they improved. I would say the Patriots are one of the teams that improved.
Yeah, I agree. Now, here's the thing: when you have an off season like this, they did they improve the amount of money they chucked at it? Does that
No,
make sense?
I'll say that they for the amount of money they spent, they should have improved more.
That's how I see it that way too.
But
And
they
I
did improve.
see somebody of those big three signings they made is going to get cut a year from now, not having performed up to their contract.
Yep, yep, yep. All
But
right.
I agree. Overall, they definitely improved. They've got too many good, solid to plus players not to have improved their team for sure. I'm with you.
Yep. Okay. The Saints.
Mm.
Um. ugh.
That kind of sums up my thoughts. And they
Yeah.
gave
I
a
mean,
massive amount of money to a very questionable guy. And I'm curious to see what you think about it.
Is it Justin Reed?
No, that would be Chase Young.
Okay, Chase Young, 3 years, 51 million. They re-signed him. He's their own guy, but yeah, yeah, that he's questionable to give that much money to. Um, Justin Reed got 31 million. Johnson got 3 years, 30 million.
Real quick, Craig. Apparently, the Eagles were in heavy on Justin Reed at safety, from what I'm hearing.
Oh, okay, yeah. I think he's a good player,
Yeah,
from
he,
what I
he was
remember.
absolutely. Yeah, I think it's a solid signing, man. He was a very if he was a chief, right? I'm thinking of the right guy. I think.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
Yep. Justin
And
Reed.
yep, and Jamal Williams got released. That's all the moves they did. So they didn't make a ton of
Yeah.
moves. I like the Reed one. Chase Young is questionable, but he's their guy. I don't really hate that. This other guy, Isaac Yadam, is 3 years, 9 million. He's not. He's a backup. But yeah, not much else, and they were a team that need a lot. They're a team on the downturn, and I don't think they improved. Maybe slightly with just on the basis of Reed, but not enough. I mean, they seem more lateral than improved to me.
I completely agree. And lateral for a team that was that bad is almost an automatic down to me.
Yeah,
Um, they and I want to circle back to the Chase Young thing because this guy has been one of the most at time for a couple years ago he was one of the most overrated players in football. He won Rookie of the Year and he looked really good that year. But if you go back and look at the numbers, he had 7.5 sacks. It wasn't like he was tearing up the league. You know what I
right,
mean?
right.
Which, by the way, he's done once since. He had 7.5 sacks in 2023, and that is the highest number of his career. And the highest number other than that is 5.5. And they gave him starter money. And I know, like he is a re-signing, but they only had him for 1 year. It's not like they drafted him or something. And he didn't start a single game.
Yeah, yeah. I hear you. I hear you.
I find it was he's just one of these people look at him and think that guy should be awesome because he looks. If you're going to
Yeah, he
build
looks the
a
part.
player in Madden, he looks. That's who I would build to play defensive end. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
he looks the part.
He really does. But he is. I mean, he is now 7 seasons into his career and he has 22 sacks. That's 3 point something a season.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah. So $51 million for 3 years to that guy. I'm saying that's a minus move.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I get it. Um.
I do like the Justin Reed signing though. That's one thing I will give them credit for.
Yes, I do too. Okay. The New York Giants
Here we go.
made some moves.
Interesting stuff with the Giants.
You're a
Interesting
robot.
stuff.
You're a robot.
Dang, robotness. Am I human? Am I human?
No, you're still a robot.
Am I human now?
Yes, you are.
Okay, we'll try that move. Okay. I don't know what's going on. I'm sorry, listeners. I don't know what's happening with my reception today. Sitting in the same spot I always do, and it's hard to figure. Let's talk about
Okay.
the Giants, man. This is fascinating.
All right. Paulson, is it a Debo or a Debo?
I believe it. A Debo is what I think I heard, but I'm not 100%.
Okay, 3 years, $54 million. So they love him obviously. Javon Holland for safety, 3 years, $45 million. Chauncey Golston, 3 years, 19 million. Not crazy money there. Um, they re-sign Darius Slayton. They bring back Tommy DeVito. They must think they're getting Rodgers, and they want to be more competitive this year because they doled out some money here.
See. I wouldn't go that far. I think this is a team whose roster has just fallen so far into the abyss of the NFL that they had to go out and sign some people just to not be the worst team in the league next year. I don't think this puts them anywhere near sniffing anything. Um, let's talk about these guys. Paulson Adebo, who I knew honestly nothing about. I had never even heard of him. But this guy's interesting. He has had been extremely up and down with the Saints. He had his rookie season and his third season. He had ratings of 6 and 7, which is very good.
Yep.
Um, but his seasons in between, he was a 4 and a 3, and the 3 was last year when he only played 7 games. So that was because of injury. So he looks like a promising guy. He wasn't a guy I was very familiar with. So that's an interesting signing. Um,
I like
Javon
Holland
Holland is a guy I
too.
like too. Oh, sorry, Craig. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. No, I was just saying I like Holland too. What was Holland's AV numbers?
Yeah, here we go. I was just gonna pull that up. Here we go. Yeah, he's just super solid. He's been a 6.3 out of his 4 years, and the 1 year he wasn't, he was a 5.
Okay, like you said, solid. So they're just they made these signings, they spent this money to just get a little more solid, I think.
That's how
And
I'm
if
looking at it, Craig. Yeah.
if they do get Rodgers, even within their schedule is impossible. But
Yeah, the whole NFC East. Yeah.
yeah, if they get Rodgers, they'll I think they can win. Probably win 6 games. But if they don't, they either go with a rookie or like someone like Kirk Cousins or somebody terrible. They might win
Right,
three.
right.
They might win like 3 games.
I'm with you, man. And one of their re-signings is because they brought him back, Tommy Cutlets, man.
Yeah.
So it looks like he's going to be the backup to whoever they have, or maybe the third string. We'll see. But I just thought it was funny they brought back Tommy Cutlets.
Yep. And they gave Darius Slayton $12 million a year.
I thought that was really interesting. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a big Slayton fan. I think he's another one of these guys he kind of looks the part and should be good, but he is always hurt. And when he plays, he's underwhelming.
I completely agree. He has shown at times you're like, oh, maybe that guy could be something. But he does that 2 or 3 games a year, and then you say it again next year. You know what I mean? And nothing ever really emerges. He's been in the league long enough that you know what he is. He's going to be 28 next year. He's played 6 seasons in the league. You are what you are at that point, and he has never had more than 50 catches.
Yep. Yep. I agree. So we'll
I
see
love
what they do at quarterback. That's the whole thing. If they get Rodgers, then they're going to win a few games anyway. But if they don't, and I don't think they're going to, I still say Pittsburgh for Rodgers. I don't know where they go if they just get lucky in the draft and get Shador or somehow get Cam Ward. I don't know, but other than that, I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. To be honest,
it's got to be draft. Like I can't imagine they're not drafting somebody, and I think they want Rodgers too. But I think they would. I can't. I mean, maybe unless they just hate everybody in this draft, which is possible. Um, I just can't see them not coming out of with one of these 3 guys. It just would be really wild to me.
oh,
So
you
I don't
think
know, man.
Jackson Dart would be the other one?
Yeah, yeah. And although I don't know they do that at. I don't. Maybe they do it at 6. Or wait, where are they 3? I'm sorry, they're 3, right?
Yeah, they're three.
I don't see him taking him at 3, but you never know. Crazy. I mean, nobody saw Bo Nix going at 8 or whatever it was last year. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
and
who knows?
if you like him, go get your guy.
Yeah, because I mean, you, me, and almost everybody was screaming at the TV when Denver did that, and everybody was wrong except them.
Yes.
So yeah, man. If you believe in him, go get him, and hopefully, he's Bo Nix and not JP Lossman.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to the other New York team.
Oh, let's do it.
Uh, Josh Myers at center, nothing. Andrew Cisco, safety, nothing. Brandon Stevens, 3 years, $36 million. So pretty good corner. I would assume. I'm not familiar with him, but I would assume to get 36 million for 3 years, he's got to be decent. And just a whole lot of nothing exciting. Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers, and C.J. Mosley all get released, and then they sign Justin Fields, who you like.
I do. Now, he just signed with the team where quarterbacks go to die. So let's see what happens. At least they have a new coach with some hope. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But this is where every quarterback but Vinny Testaverde has gone to die for the last 40 years. So I'm really curious to see how it works out for him. What I love is that he was able to get a place where he is the guy and he has 1 year to win this job for the long term. He
yep.
really does. Unless he just plays just horrible and something weird happens. But yeah, he's got his shot. Now it's
Now
with the
the thing
Jets.
is, if Dart is there for them at 6, do they take him?
I don't think so, but I'm not sure. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. I'm really not. I don't know. I don't know what to make of it because listen, they did sign Justin Fields to be their starter, but it's a 2 year deal and it's for what 40 million. It's not like they gave him Kirk Cousins money last year or something.
Yeah, no, yeah, I agree. So we'll see. But I'm like you. I do like him overall. Probably not quite as much as you, but I do like him. The thing is, he's got to stay healthy, and they got more work to do. I'm not. I'm underwhelmed with everything else they did. Jimmy and Sherwood's a decent player. 3 years, $45 million. That's their own guy, though. Um, you know, Fields and Rogers have completely different games,
Yeah.
obviously, but
Yes.
but in terms of those quarterbacks translating to wins, I would probably say Rogers translates to more wins than Fields,
I don't
which
know.
means they might have taken a step back.
I don't know. You might if both guys play 16 game seasons with
The same
or
rosters
seven
around them.
exactly,
I
then I
think
I would give it to Rodgers. But last year maybe still. But listen, this guy led the Steelers to what were they when what were they
he was 4-2.
4-2, and it wasn't like the Steelers were world beaters. You know what
No,
I mean? So
no,
he did.
they could unlock something, and he could be, way better than Rodgers. I could see that. He rushed for 1,000 yards one year too, so he can move. Maybe they get creative with him a little bit, and it translates to a better team. But overall, I think this is either lateral at best, but probably a step back because they didn't really do anything else that's all that impressive.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. Their offseason so far is insanely underwhelming.
Yep.
Insanely underwhelming. Like, I'm happy for Justin Fields that he gets a shot to prove he can be a starter. But other than that, there is really nothing to get excited about at all.
Let's go to. We're going to skip your team, and the next team would be the Steelers, who took two of your players.
Sure did. Sure did. Yep.
Da-
Got Darius
Darius
Slay, which
Slay
all the talk was him going back to the Lions, but that came out of nowhere and bam, got it done.
and Kenneth Gainwell.
Yes, which I knew he was gone. I really like him. And listen, he's got a chance to get some serious carries next year because it's just him and who's the guy the other guy
Oh, I
that's
always forget his name because they got rid of Harris. So it's
yeah Warren, Jalen Warren.
yes, Jalen Warren. So yeah, he should at least be at worst like a split.
And they're two little guys, by the way.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, both of those guys I think are under 200 pounds.
yeah.
Um,
Mason Rudolph as a backup.
yep,
Malik Harrison's not that good. They traded for DK Metcalf and then extended him 5 years, $150 million. So
unbelievable.
you know they've got the receiver now, and if they get Aaron Rodgers, Rodgers has got to go there. Come on,
It
I
doesn't make
didn't think
sense
about it
anywhere
even
else.
more. You got Metcalf and you're going to have Pickens.
The only thing is if his ego is big enough to think that he can hold off the Vikings number one pick and he wants to play with Justin Jefferson. Because I everything else points to Pittsburgh to me too.
Oh, you're McCarthy. You're talking about McCarthy.
McCarthy, what did I say?
No, you just said the Vikings number one pick.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, that he can hold off McCarthy, who was their number one pick.
Yes, yes, yes. Um,
Um,
I don't know. I think Pittsburgh's a better situation for him. I mean, Pickens and Metcalf, that's an elite core. That's an elite two receiver. That is that the best 1-2 in the league? It's right up there.
no, I would still take the Eagles over it. I would still take. There's another team that has a really good one too.
I
Who
mean,
is
I
it?
would say, at least it's up there though.
It is. Oh, it's way up there. Now, here's a really interesting part about this too. Um, Now I've been a big Pickens guy, but he was a maniac last year. Like he's really a head case. I didn't realize what a big head case this guy was. And I'm used to receiver head cases and little things here, like AJ Brown reading on the sideline, CJ Lamb throwing an occasional hissy fit. But I would take that none of that is anything close to what Pickens was doing. You know, he was
Yeah,
getting penalties, he was walking off the field. And who do they bring in to be his mentor? DK Metcalf, who has more unsportsmanlike conduct penalties than anybody at the receiver position since he came into the league.
right. So that's not a mentor.
So what's really good? It's going to be fun though because they're both off their rockers and they will both throw down at the slightest provocation, and they're both insanely talented. So it's going to be really interesting in Pittsburgh, man. I
Yeah,
can't wait
I
to
tell
see
you
those
what,
two play together.
if you throwing Rogers into that mix too.
Yes. Oh my God. I mean, fun. Talk about building a fun pie. Throw Aaron Rodgers in there, it gets a whole lot more fun.
Fun pie,
Fun
fun
pie.
pie.
It's a fun pie year in Pittsburgh. Let's go.
All right. Um. Yeah. They released. No. I'm sorry. That's pretty much everybody for them. We'll have to see what they do at quarterback because right now it's who is it besides Rudolph?
I think it's just Rudolph, man. I have. Let me.
Oh, jeez.
I'm trying to remember who was their backup because it was. Oh yeah, because it was Wilson and Fields, and they're both
Right.
gone.
And yeah. Where's Wilson's not signed yet, right?
Correct. Correct. Can you say?
Do you think they would go back to him if they don't get Rodgers?
I mean, they might be stuck where they have to, and I don't for whatever. It was so weird. The like Russell Wilson must be a really odd dude because you look at his numbers at the end of last year and they were pretty good. Like they were like pretty damn good. But yet there was never a second where it seemed like Pittsburgh ever wanted him back.
Agreed.
So I don't understand. And he's won Super Bowls. He went through a stretch where he was a top 2 or 3 quarterback in the league for 5 years. And for the last 5 years, it seems like nobody wants anything to do with him.
Yep.
So I don't know what the hell. I just remember him doing that video one year. There was one year he did a video lying in bed with his wife in like satin sheets and talking about how awesome his life is and stuff. And I was like, oh, he's a little weird. But if you just look at the numbers, it doesn't make any sense that he is like the last choice of people out there right now. It's really interesting to me.
I'm the next team. We have to get talk about who they lost. So I'm trying to find it
Oh, I'm with you. Okay.
because they are getting destroyed across the league, across all the social media, across any kind of news outlet talking about free agency. Uh, PFF ranks the 49ers as the biggest losers in free agency.
Lost 7 of their own free agents, including Kyle Juszczyk, the fullback that's been a fixture for years, Javon Hargrave, who they signed to a massive contract a few years ago, the old Eagles defensive tackle, Malik Collins, and several others. Holy
Leonard
moly!
Floyd,
Floyd, yep.
and
Now
they traded.
Floyd is kind of like Charles Haley. That guy doesn't stay with anybody for more than a year or two,
Yeah,
so I
and they
can't blame him too
traded
much on that one.
Debo. Obviously, there's nobody left. It's Brock Purdy, and that's it.
It's really interesting, man. It's a
This is
fascinating.
one of the teams that I was talking about way back to the pack.
I completely agree in this case, 100%. Um,
I mean,
you know
they Mac Jones, the Marcus Robinson, 2 years, 9 million. Luke Farrell, tight end, 3 years, 20 million. And everything else is a 1 year deal of guys that are just kind of depth pieces. And everybody else is, who they lost. They lost some big names, big players for them, and they're not replacing them.
it's really interesting, man. It really is. The one thing I will say is I think they're still they need depth, they do, but they're still kind of okay at receiver, assuming, and it's a big assumption, but assuming Ricky Pearsall is a player.
Right, and he might be. He might
He
be.
might be. He looked good when he was healthy last year, but I think he played about 4 games. I don't know the exact number, but he didn't play much. And but a lot of it wasn't his fault. He got shot, but in the preseason. So,
Right.
but Jawan Jennings proved to be the best receiver on their team last year,
Yeah. Yep.
just for that year. Because I mean, Debo has the better credentials overall for sure, and so does Ayuk. But Ayuk didn't play. Debo had a down year. Jennings was when he was on the field, he was awesome last year. So they have the makings. I can understand kind of why they would be willing to let go Debo, and they still have Ayuk, right?
Yeah.
So, and I didn't hear anything about him. I assume he'll be back at the beginning of the year. So they have three still good receivers, but like you said, that's just scratching the surface of their losses.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
so and not much gains. So I'm with you 100%, man. This is, and I love it because I am not a 49er fan. Never been a big Kyle Shanahan guy, and this is them going down and going down hard.
Really. Yeah. Back to the pack. Okay. Let's resume here. Interesting team here, what they've done. Seattle.
Here we go. Okay, very
They
interesting.
traded Geno Smith away. They traded DK Metcalf away. They released Tyler Lockett. They released George Fant, the tackle, Rayshon Jenkins. Um, they signed Sam Darnold. Okay, he's for Geno, maybe even an upgrade if he could play like he did last year. 3 years, $100 million,
And a
and they
lot younger.
yes, but they get Marquez Valdez Scantling 1 year, $5 million. That's the only receiver they brought in when they got rid of both of their guys, Metcalf and
That's
Lockett.
Now listen, they have a very good number one, Jackson Smith and Jigba. But who the hell is behind? Are you going to make? I hope they have somebody other than Marquez Valdez Scantling they like better for number two,
Ma-
because unless
Maybe
they
they have their eye on a receiver in the draft or something.
maybe they have somebody on their depth chart that's up and coming that we're not aware of. But MVS is a deep shot number 3 or 4 receiver who's going to drop as many as he makes. And he is what he is. He's going to make a couple of plays where you're like, oh my God, that was awesome. And he's going to make a couple like he did against the Eagles last year where he just dropped the game winning play. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So um, it barely does anything for me signing MVS. So yeah, that's a net big time loss in the receiver department. I'll tell you what, there's a couple receivers, and I forgot to mention this when we talked about the Bills, so I'll say it now. 2 receivers got massively helped by their team's off seasons. Um, one is Jackson Smith and Jigba because there is nobody threatening him for targets, and the other is Khalil Shakir for the
Yep.
Bills.
Yep.
That guy's a target monster. He got paid big in this offseason when they extended him. And the best thing they did to add to their receiving core this year is the perennial underachieving Josh Palmer. So boom. If you are in a PPR league, spend big on both of those guys because those guys are going to be top. JSN could be top 5 in a PPR league this year, and Khalil Shakir will be top 10.
Yep. I agree.
Right on.
Um, they also signed Ernest Jones, the linebacker. They re-signed him, 3 years, 33. And they took the Cowboys, Demarcus Lawrence, who is a really good player. I love Demarcus Lawrence. I one thing I'm not as upset as I thought I would be because I really wanted him back. I forgot how old he is,
Yeah.
and now I'm okay with it. because I would not want him for 3 more years at $32 million, considering he's like 33 or 34 now. I don't
I
want a
complete
36-year-old edge rusher.
I completely agree. He's listen. He's a really good player, and I'm all for them having him for the next year or two. But they're gonna, there's probably I don't know how the contract's structured. A lot of these, they can get out in the last year and not take too much of a hit. But you never know. They have to be smart, and the player has to agree. So you never know with that stuff until you stare at the contract, which nobody ever sees because reporters never give you the details. But uh, but I'm with you. I don't mind. It's similar in a sense to the Milton Williams signing of the away from the Eagles, even though they're at different points in their ages in their careers. We both agree that we wouldn't have wanted our teams to have given them that money
Right. I would
and
have liked
length.
Dallas to bring him back at a reasonable cost, but not that money and not that length. If
Yep.
Dallas
No.
signed to a 2-year contract for like $20 million or $18 million, 19, something like that,
Yep. Let's go.
I'd be all for it. Because he's like you said, he is a good player. There's nothing. Talk about looking the part. Demarcus Lawrence is perfect for an edge rusher body type.
No doubt. No doubt. And his by the way, because he's not like much like Brandon Graham, he's a very good defensive end who doesn't have eye-popping sack numbers. He had 2 years that were in double digits, but I say that to give him a compliment, which is at 31 years old in 2023, he only had 4 sacks, but he had an 11 rating on
Yeah.
Pro Football Reference,
Yep.
which is super high, super high. I mean, he had an 11 rating the year he had 10 and a half sacks, and he had a 14 rating the year he had 14 and a half. So it gives you some kind of context there.
Yeah.
So
So I mean, he's had a nice career. He's a good player. No,
very
no,
good.
no, no dispute there for me. It's just the age thing and the length and all that.
Yep.
So I thought I'd be more upset. I kind of just got lost on my mind in terms of his age. And when I got dug into it a little bit more, saw the money, saw the years, saw the age, and I was like, all right, I can kind of see where the Cowboys are coming from, not bringing him back.
Yeah. No, I'll take any opportunity to rip the Cowboys for doing something dumb, but this I completely understand.
Yeah. Okay, Tampa Bay. Hassan Reddick, $14 million. They sign him. They signed a punter. They signed Anthony Walker. Oh, and they bring back Chris Godwin, Levante David, their linebacker,
Yep.
Kyle
Those are both
Trask,
big
the,
moves.
the backup quarterback, and that's really it though. And did they go lateral? Maybe even down a little bit.
I would put them at least lateral. I'd have to look at their losses though before I make any real grand proclamations. But I will say this: getting Hassan Reddick this year on a 1 year deal, I think, is a great move because that guy is going to be one motivated sob after wasting an entire year last year.
Yep.
Oh
Yep.
man, I really wish it was. I can't believe how hard it is to find who left a team. It drives me crazy. Why is it so hard?
I don't know.
Um,
Trying to find it myself.
hmm, and I am not finding it. Man, that's because yeah, like because they didn't sign a whole lot of people. So if they had a lot of, if they had more than 2 or 3 significant losses, I'd have to agree with you that this is a slight downtick because the only really significant signing is Hassan Reddick. I mean, they had some good recent. Godwin being re-signed is huge, but as far as coming from outside the team, that's the only really big signing.
Let's see if I can find.
I don't know why I can't find this. It's driving me nuts here.
I'm on their official site. It's just signing. It's talking about who they're signing, who they signed.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay. Shaquille Bennett, Eric Banks. Wow, there's a lot. There's a lot of people on here, but it's all their free agents. It's not just the good ones. Sterling Shepard,
that's not. That means nothing. He hasn't been
Jordan
anything for
Jordan Whitehead.
that.
Um,
That's a starting offensive lineman, I think.
yep. Ryan Neal. Yeah, they've got some. They've got a lot of guys here who are. I don't know if they're signed with anybody else, but they got a lot of guys listed here with on their site that are still free agents right now.
Interesting. Yeah, that's going to be interesting. Now, I did see on the NFL free agency show on ESPN, one of the guys was making a case that Tampa Bay has one of the best rosters in the NFC. So that guy would disagree with our assessment.
Right, and just because they're losing these guys doesn't mean they're going to, or you know, or they're really great players, big losses. So overall, though, maybe I'll say lateral. I'll say lateral instead of a down tick. Um, but I can't really go much on an uptick. I don't think so.
No, not with. I mean, really, the only big signing was Reddick. So, and that's a good signing. I mean, I would not be surprised at all for him to bounce back and have double digit sacks because he has almost every year of his career when he's been right. So he just took a stance last year. And by the way, let me throw Howie Roseman a little credit here, real quick, while we're talking about Reddick. Howie Roseman read the tea leaves with Reddick and saw that he was wanting to negotiate. Traded him for a
You're a robot.
conditional.
You're a
God,
robot.
he's right in the middle of a fun thing. How about that?
Much better.
Oh, okay, sweet. So Howie Roseman gets wind that Reddick wants to renegotiate during the offseason last year, and says, not happening. Let's trade him for a third round pick that was a conditional second rounder. I don't remember. I don't think he met the conditions because he didn't play enough. He spends a whole season trying to renegotiate with the Jets. Finally, comes back in like week 13 or something ridiculous, and has one sack all season. Um, and so Howie Roseman got the Eagles a third round draft pick for a guy who had one sack last year.
That's pretty good.
Pretty good. Now that guy. Oh, dang it, Craig. Sorry. Can you hear me? My
I can
phone
hear you.
fell.
I can still hear you.
Okay, good. Sorry. Okay, well now I know if my phone falls, it doesn't go into robot mode either. All right, good. Um, so yeah, listen, I'm with you, man. This is one I'm gonna say more data required before I make any kind of reasonable assessment on this. But so far, lateral at best.
Yep. All right. Let's move on to the Tennessee Titans.
Okay.
Their big signing was a tackle, Dan Moore, 4 years, $82 million. And Cody Barton, their linebacker, 3 years, 21 million. But Xavier Woods, 2 years, 10 million. Nothing is jumping off the page of me here either. They released Harold Landry. Um, I don't know. The Xavier Woods, 2 years, 10 million. I've always liked him. I liked him when he was on the Cowboys. Van Jefferson doesn't do anything for me.
That's depth piece, yeah. The big signing here is Dan Moore. This guy who I have, again, not surprising. I don't know an interior lineman's name, but look him up on Pro Football Reference. He started. Listen, this is pretty awesome. He played 16, 17, 16, and 17 games for the Pittsburgh Steelers the last 4 seasons. Started every game he played
That's
and had a
awesome.
7 or an 8 rating each year.
All right, so he's solid as a rock.
Yeah, solid as a rock.
But other than that,
But other than that,
I'm
not
not.
much.
I'm not. I'm not impressed here.
No, and they lost Harold Landry, which you mentioned, which is a big loss. I'm not sure what else they lost without magic internet skills I don't have, but yeah, no, not impressed in any way with their. I mean, I love the Dan Moore thing, but other than that, this is a bad team that's not, the big thing for them is going to be the draft. I mean, they have the number one pick. I can't wait to see what they're going to do with it. I would guess the Miami quarterback if I had to guess something right now, Ward,
Yeah.
but we'll see where that ends up landing. And they've been making noise about trying to trade it, but we hear that almost every year and it almost never happens, you know?
Yep. Okay. Yeah. Um. We'll have to
So
see what they do. But
bad team mistake moves laterally, maybe because of getting a great guard and losing a very good pass rusher. I don't know.
okay, the last team on our list before we go to our teams is a nemesis in our division, and they got better, man.
I
Holy
hate it.
crap, they
I
got a
hate it.
lot better.
Hate it,
Uh,
hate it, hate it.
let's start with Javon Kinlaw, 3 years, 45 million. Even Will Harris is a solid safety. Jonathan Jones, solid corner. Um, Eddie Goldman 1 year. But then they trade for Laramie Tunsil. They trade for Debo Samuel. They re-sign Wagner, Mariota, Ertz, Noah Brown, KJ Osborne, even their kicker Zane Gonzalez. Oh no, he got released, and Jonathan Allen got released as well. But other than that, I mean, in my opinion, they're right up there with the best off seasons with anybody else. I mean, they really are going for it, and as long as Daniels doesn't have a sophomore slump or take a step back, they're going to be scary.
Yeah, it's really annoying. They
It is because they're going to be good, man. They're going to be good.
I am just livid still at the Niners for giving up Debo Samuel to them for a fifth round pick. I am half convinced they never called any other teams. I just Washington is going to be a playoff team this year for sure. And so that fifth round pick is going to be like 24 at best
Yep,
in the fifth round. And
yep,
they couldn't find some crappy team willing to give up their fifth round pick or a better team give up their fourth round pick. It just blows me away. And now they did give up some stuff to get Laramie Tunsil, but he was worth every bit of it. I mean, this guy, going back to the Pro Football Reference thing, this guy, now he was hurt in 2021 and only played 5 games. But other than that, he's played at least 14 games every season he's been in the league since 2016. And the last 3 seasons in Houston, being arguably the only good offensive lineman they had for those years, 8, 9, and 9, and made the Pro Bowl every year.
yeah. He's awesome.
He's a great player. And you can argue Debo's on the downswing if you want, and you can make a really good case because the numbers do back it up. But I don't even care if he's on the downswing; he's still a good player, very good player, and you can argue he's great. So,
Yep.
uh,
And
yeah, I don't know what.
Zach Ertz was big for them last year,
Yeah,
and
I mean he found the fountain of youth and is
and
kicking
so
butt
did
and taking
Bobby
names.
Wagner. Bobby Wagner found the fountain of youth too. He's still solid. He's still really good. They got him back for $9 million.
Yeah, man. Yes, I will say it is scary for any team that is relying heavily on two guys that are 35 and older. But
True,
that because that ledge does come
but
and it comes in a hurry.
other than that, there's nothing that you can say other than praise it.
Yeah. No, it's super annoying. I have to give them credit. My best hope is that Debo continues his downslide and Laramie Tunsil decides to play games in the bong mask that he wore that cost him 10 draft slots 10 years ago. That's because other than that, man, they killed it. They killed it.
All right, on to our teams.
Let's
Oh
do
boy.
this.
Okay, so we went over Demarcus Lawrence going, and Rico Dowdle and Jordan Lewis. Um, Dallas, I don't know. They signed. It seems more like depth pieces to have more depth, and I think overall that's not a terrible thing. But still, nothing jumps off the page really to me. Um, they got Kenneth Murray from Tennessee, a sign and trade
That
linebacker.
was interesting.
Yep, yep. Um,
He's been a good player, unlike Elam. Like Elam's a project taking a flyer. Kenneth
yep,
Murray's actually been a pretty good player. I looked him up and he's put up some numbers and been solid.
yeah. Jack Sanborn, I don't know anything about. Um, Peyton Turner, I also don't know too much about. Then they come back and get Cavante Turpin, who I still say I don't care. Anybody can put anybody they want. He's the best kick returner in the league, bar none, and the fastest guy in the league.
Oh, I agree. And they finally figured out a way to make him a little bit of a playmaker this year.
Yep, yep. Um, I like the Solomon Thomas signing the tackle, offensive line. Robert Jones, don't know too much about him, and this is what I don't understand about the Rico Dowdle letting him go when he gets signed for 1 year, $3 million. Because I consider him better than Javante Williams, and they signed
Absolutely.
Javante Williams for 1 year, $3 million.
Yeah, it's
So why
fascinating.
would you not just bring back Rico if that's what you're spending? It's the same contract.
I don't understand it. That was a really weird one to me. Rico has proved more in this league than Javante has, so I didn't understand it. I think Javante's a little younger, but but it doesn't make sense to me at all.
I don't get that.
Yeah, I mean like listen, this guy was a high second round draft pick, I think, just a couple years ago. So
Yeah,
maybe the and Jerry, I don't know how involved Jerry is in this stuff anymore, but he is known to fall in love with people and then go after them years later. So maybe it's one of those things. I don't know.
I don't know much about Trent Sieg. He's oh, he's a long snapper. That's why I don't know anything about him. He's a long snapper.
All right,
So
yeah, nice, nice. But you
I
did
thought I
keep
thought
your
it was
punter, which
linebacker.
I can't believe you guys actually gave a kicker a second contract.
Yes, yes. Brian Enger gets a second contract, and I do love him. He is a great punter. They bring back Marquise Bell, who I love. I really like Marquise Bell, and they signed C.J. Goodwin, who was their fourth corner, who I think is going to be the third over Elam, but we'll have to see. Um, and of course, they re-signed Odigizua for that big money, and I like that as well. Um, so you know, it's up and down. It's nothing crazy really for me. Um, but it's not terrible. I kind of sometimes there's years where you just kind of got to reset all your depth and just be solid. So that way, there, if you get hurt with injuries, you're not completely out of the game anymore. Like they were last year. That's probably what they did. Is probably overreacting to last year because last year they were so decimated, as much as anybody or more than anybody in the league, really, especially on defense. Well,
Yeah,
actually across the
for
board.
sure.
And
Yeah, the whole
I,
way. Yeah, the whole way.
yeah, and I think they kind of, they maybe they got a little scared into doing this, and we got to get better, get some better depth, so we're not relying on just the starters when they go down. We're screwed. But it doesn't jump off the page, and then all the talk about all the money they had is just going to go to Parsons, which
Yeah,
they need to
yeah.
sign now.
I mean, they're getting as the second. Max Crosby signed first this offseason for defensive ends, and right then everybody's like, "Well, there's their chance to they missed their chance to set the market for in the Parsons signing." And then not long after that, Garrett, what's his name, Miles Garrett signs for even more. So there's their second chance that they lost to set the to
Yeah,
keep
and
this contract down a little
as
bit.
as we talked about, if you sign him, you actually get some money back off the cap. More
Yeah,
money frees up, and I don't know why they do this with all their big name guys. They wait. I don't know why nobody else waits. Like
it's
they
the
wait. They
exact
wait with everybody. Dak they waited. CD they waited. They're waiting now with Parsons. I wouldn't be surprised if they wait all the way until like week 9 this year. So all of a sudden they announce that they signed him or something crazy like that.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because they're the Eagles and the Cowboys approach couldn't be more polar opposite. You know what I mean? The Eagles are always trying to sign guys. They're trying to identify and sign guys when they're still on their first contract and extend them for years into that second contract at less money than they would get if they became free agents. And the Cowboys just pay everybody at the top of the market. They just pay everybody at the top of the market. Now, the one exception to that is this Odazigwe. How do you say it? Odazigwa?
Oh, Diggy Zua.
Odigizua. That's a fun name to say if I can remember it.
It really
Odigizua.
is, right?
I like it now. Yeah, it's like I'm going to use that name to make a rhythm for a song now. Odigizua. I like that.
Yeah.
All right.
And
So
he's a good player,
Odigizua,
by the
this
way.
is the
I
one time that I remember in ever that they got ahead of it, and they got their guy for
and I
four
do
years,
like
80
him.
million. Milton Williams signed for 4 years, 104 million. So they actually got ahead of a position for once.
Right. For once. And I do like Odigizua quite a bit, actually. Watching every game, you see every play, and he's an impact player. He's very good.
Everything I've read is I mean he was second on the team in hurries last year to
Yeah.
the guy that's going to get the big money. So that's all I need to know.
Yeah, he's very good. So that's a good signing. Re-signing, but we'll have to see what else they do. Like I said, I think 90% of this money is just going to go to Parsons, and they're basically done. Again,
Yeah, it's wild.
underwhelming.
And isn't it
Underwhelming.
wild though that having said, and I agree with everything you said, by the way, having said all that, that they were 10,000 more times active than last offseason
Right.
when they
Right.
were all in and all they signed was a long snapper.
Yeah. It's just terrible. I don't know. I don't know. I don't have any hope for this year. I really want Genty or at least a running back because there's a lot of good running backs in this draft. So even if
A lot.
you don't need to have your heart set on Genty like I did earlier, doing when did the combine, I realized there's a lot of good running backs. So they should, in all likelihood, get a really good college running back, even if it's like a second rounder, they should still get somebody pretty good.
Yeah,
And
man.
you know, Dak functions a lot better with a really good running game. They have a chance at that. Of course, Dak being back always helps. He still has that ridiculous record against the NFC East. Um, so we'll have to
Yeah,
see what he
right,
can
right.
do. He's 34-8
That's it. That's crazy.
against the NFC East.
I mean,
Yeah,
that is absolutely nuts.
yeah, 34-8, or maybe 33-8, something like that. Either way, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I won't
Um,
quibble. It's amazing either way.
right. I don't think it's going to be. I would right now. I would right now. If you told me they can go 500 against the NFC East, I would take it
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
that means
In after saying that, yeah, no, I get what you're saying, man. Wow. Oh, there goes my phone again. Sorry. Am I still human?
you are. You are.
All right, sweet.
Um, yeah. So we'll have to see. But Dak being back obviously helps in getting a running game that would help in the draft. And we'll have to see what they do with Parsons and if they do have any other money, to make a late free agent signing or a late in the season trade like they did a couple years ago when they got um, what's his
Cooks
face,
and Brandon
Gilbert,
Cooks and Gilmore.
Gilmore, yeah, Gilmore and Brandon Cooks when they got that. Other than that, though, I don't see them doing that much more. And this was more just solidifying, and we're gonna roll the dice again. And I don't. I think it's gonna be a struggle to even make the playoffs, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. I don't know what to make of the Cowboys anymore. I really don't. We know that the Eagles are good, and we know that the Commanders are good, so they have tough challenges there. We know the Giants are bad, so they have that to look forward to at least. Um, but I just don't know what to make of them now. I really
If the
don't after this
Giants
past
get
year.
Rodgers, I don't know. I
Giants
like.
stink.
I know, but we can't beat Aaron Rodgers. We've never beat him.
That's great.
Rodgers destroys us every
Oh, I
time
love
he
it.
he plays us.
Yeah, but he's not that guy anymore.
Right, right, right,
And he doesn't have anything like the guys he had that he was playing with when he was destroying your team either.
right, right. So we'll have to see.
If anybody can destroy Aaron Rodgers, it's the Giants.
And I would be shocked if he doesn't go to Pittsburgh.
Me too.
So
It's the only one that makes a lot of sense.
you gotta have your head examined if you choose the Giants over the Steelers. Doesn't make any sense.
It'll tell you, I don't know what exactly it'll say, but it'll tell you something about the guy.
Yeah.
I don't know what, but it'll tell you something.
All right. So that's the Cowboys. On to your Eagles.
All right. Well, my team has taken some hits, as was going to happen.
Yeah.
Everybody knew it
Oh,
was going to happen.
real quick before you start, it seems like there's a major overreaction. I went online and I wasn't even specifically searching for the Eagles on YouTube. Like I was doing
Hmm.
something, I was searching for videos, and I was going over like sometimes I like to relive the glory days. I watched
Oh,
I watched the first Buffalo Cowboys Super Bowl
I
highlights.
love it.
Oh,
Oh,
sorry, I got a call. Sorry.
oh,
Um,
no worries. I was worried it was me
but
again. No,
anyway,
you're all good.
yep. No, but yeah, I watched those highlights. But then all this football. Sorry again, I got another call.
No worries.
Yeah, but all this football content came up, and it was all these Philadelphia people like losing their mind about how bad their off season's going, and all the
Well,
people they lost. And I was like, I don't think it's that bad. I mean, I don't think they lost some players, but I don't think it's that terrible. What do you think?
I'm with you. I don't think it's that bad. Honestly, I don't think it's that bad at all relative to having just won a Super Bowl because they could it could have. Luckily, Howie's really good at extending guys, so a lot of the biggest hits that could have happened weren't there because he had extended them in previous years. So I love all the players that they lost. I love Darius Slay, but that's the one that makes the most sense to let walk. He's going to be 35 years old playing this year, and he's been a very good player for a long time. But they have all kinds of stuff waiting in the wings to take over for him, and they are set at corner, so they're fine there. Um, Josh Sweat, love that guy. I mean, I'm a big fan of Josh Sweat. I think Arizona got a great player, but they have a ton of pass rushers. and
Right.
and while I love Josh Sweat, I think the most sacks he ever had in a season is 8.5. So it's not like they lost Reggie White as much as I
Right.
like him.
Right. Right.
Oh no, wait, I'm sorry. He did have 11 in 2022. The most he had other than that was 8 in 6 other seasons.
Yeah.
So
I
I
mean,
love the guy, but I'm okay with him leaving. Sorry, go ahead,
yeah.
please.
No, he's a good player, but like you said, you guys are stacked with pass rushers.
There's a reason how he just drafts defensive ends every year. So when things like this happen, they're okay. You know what I mean? Um, the Milton Williams one again. I talked about that a decent amount. I won't belabor that point other than to say there is no chance in hell they were ever going to re-sign him, and certainly not for that money because they are stacked at defensive tackle as much as they are at defensive end, arguably even more. So they have 2 first-round picks still under contract in Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter that are play. Jalen Carter is one of the best in football, and Jordan Davis is very good. So there's no chance they were going to get him back. I love him. I hope he does well. I hope he earns every cent there. But I would be surprised if he ever exceeds 5 sacks in a season in New England.
Yeah, I just think that's a little overreaction, but I was kind of surprised at how many. There was like multiple videos on YouTube, and I didn't click on any of them, but they all were like, what's going on? The Eagles are having the worst off season. Like it was a lot. There was like at least 7 or 8 of them, different people, all of them Eagles fans, and all of them just like I said, losing their minds over what's been going on.
Well,
And and again, I
some
do think they lost some guys, and but I don't think it's that bad.
I agree with everything you said, and let me give you a little example of what it's like to be an Eagle fan. The worst part about being an Eagle fan is having to share with other Eagle fans because there are the vast majority are great, but there's a loud, vocal minority that are idiots. And there's a reason that the Veterans Stadium had a district justice office in it during games for the last 20 years of its existence, so they could put people in jail during the
Yeah, like
day of
last
game.
year, that guy. There was that video that went viral of that asshole Eagles fan who was like yelling at a little girl or something.
Oh, I forgot about that. You're right. You're
Yeah,
right.
and that
Well,
and that's like that just feeds more into their reputation and looks bad for the good Eagle fans. And
it
and
does, and
and
the media
but
has it
there's a
in for
lot of that. They have a lot of that in their history for some reason.
there's a lot of it, but there's also a national perception about Philly that every time something like that happens, it
It,
gets overhyped
oh,
because,
absolutely. Because like I said, that video went viral. I didn't wouldn't have known about that, but it was everywhere.
yeah, and there's asshole fans in the crowd in every stadium and every game every Sunday. And
Yep.
I'll give you an example. I remember watching the Cleveland Browns play. I'm pretty sure it was the Steelers back when Tim Couch was still playing, of all people, and they made a bad call in Cleveland, and the crowd flooded the field with cups and
Yep.
containers, and the game was postponed, or I mean, suspended for a couple minutes, and blah 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 blah. Nobody I ever talked to has ever heard about that, but people
Right.
know about that dickhead in Philly. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because of the rep. By the way, the Santa Claus thing, Santa was drunk. That's why they pelted him with snowballs. So yeah, now we're the I got off on a tangent about idiot fans. Oh yeah.
Well, you
So
said
that's what
being
it's
an
like
Eagles
being an Eagle
fan.
fan.
Yeah.
Is there are people like that pop up. I sat in the mayor's seat of Lancaster. I live in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. The mayor of Lancaster used to have season tickets, and I used to sit in his seat for 2 seasons because I taught the fire chief of Lancaster's guitar lessons, and he would take me 2 or 3 times a year. The reason the mayor of Lancaster stopped going to see the Eagles is because he got hit in the head by a brick with a brick after a game
Oh,
by an Eagle
him.
fan.
Jeez.
By an Eagle fan. He was an Eagle fan. And he never went to another game again. So I listen. The overreacting thing. There's a lot of morons out there, and if people don't understand that Howie has a pretty good idea of how to do things at this point, they haven't been paying attention.
Right.
So, are there going to have to be some sacrifices made the year you win a Super Bowl? Yes. Is it the end of the world? No. And I think on balance, they've done pretty well. And the other thing I want to hit while we're on the Eagles is the what I love. I can't believe they signed. We've somehow this guy's come up a lot in our 2 years of podcast for somebody that hardly ever plays and does anything significant. He's come up way more than he should have, and that's AJ Dillon. And he's coming up again, Craig, because the Eagles signed him.
Yeah, I don't understand that signing.
Well, they got him for nothing, and
Right.
he's depth. It's all it is because Will Shipley's going to beat him out for backup,
Yeah.
the rookie they drafted last year. So
Yep.
he is a body because they lost uh
Gainwell.
Gainwell. Thank you. So he's and listen, AJ Dillon missed all of last season with a neck injury, got cleared. So there's a possibility maybe he's got a little charge in the tank like he did his first couple seasons. His he's better than I thought if you want to buy into these Pro Football Reference ratings because I can't believe how highly they had him rated for a couple seasons. Check this out. So AJ Dillon has played 4 seasons in the NFL. His rookie season, he only had 46 carries, got a 2. That's, he hardly played. The next season, he ran for 800 yards on 187 carries, 4.3 a carry, 9 rating. The next season,
Wow.
4.1 yards a carry, ran for 770 yards, 7 rating. This past year, 6 rating. So I'm stunned. It almost seems like somebody in Pro Football Reference has a thing for him, but because I don't think he of him that highly, but it made me feel better about him being signed as potentially a third round, third on your depth chart running back after reading
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe he's got something. Maybe he'll surprise you.
Yeah, you know what I
But
mean. And it's
for
not they're
the
not counting on him for anything, so it's
for
all
the
right.
Eagles, for me, I would say lateral. I don't think they improved. But I don't think their losses are as bad as some people think. I mean, lateral or slightly down, but not really significant to me. They're still going to be awesome. So I'll go lateral. But I can't say they moved up.
No,
I can't say that.
I agree with you 100%. I can't argue with that assessment at all. That's exactly how I would say it. And it's pretty cool on their part that they lost. I would say they lost 3 like starting major massive contributors in Williams, Sweat, and Slay, and they lost 3 other pretty like semi-significant guys in their backup running back in Gainwell, who's going to be relatively easy to replace, but it's still a guy who contributed significantly. They lost Isaiah Rogers, who I don't think we brought up. Isaiah Rogers was the guy who he was their guy when any of the cornerbacks the big 3 got hurt last year. He was the guy that started for them, and he played very well when called upon. And he signed a deal to be a starter in Minnesota, so that's a good move for Minnesota. I really liked him. And they lost Orrin Burks at linebacker, but they have Trotter Jr. coming up behind him, so that's why they let him walk. I do understand why they let Burks walk. And then the only other move I want to talk about with the Eagles is I want to double back to that because we talked about the Kenny Pickett for Dorian Thompson-Robins thing enough. We covered that significantly and well enough. But I do want to talk about the C.J. Gardner-Johnson for Kenyon Green trade, which I found fascinating. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who is a bit of a wild card, and I love him. I think he's great, but that guy he'll say anything, and he's a little out there, so don't always know where he's coming from. But on the field, 100% big time CJ Gardner fan. But apparently Howie Roseman sat down and said, "Listen, we've got to make this trade because we drafted Sidney Rice in the 3rd round 2 years ago. He's ready to be a starter, and we can't afford to have a bunch of guys entering their late 20s on contracts. And this is the one guy we have, a guy waiting in the wings. So we're going to trade you to a team and take care of you." And CJ Gardner Johnson, who was ready to fly off the handle at just about anything, put out a thing saying, "Hey, they talked to me about it. I'm cool with it. I understand."
Oh, well, okay.
Couldn't believe it, dude. Couldn't believe it. So now the other side of that is the Eagles got Kenyon Green out of this, who was the 15th pick in the first round 3 years ago.
Okay.
And oh, sorry, please go ahead. I left a pregnant pause. Sorry, I didn't mean to step on it.
No. I was just saying, that's what we were talking about earlier about the Cowboys and the Eagles both were have been trying to get reclamation projects for old first round picks.
Exactly. Now the cool thing about this with the Eagles in this case is they have. I'm sorry, I dropped the phone again. Am I still human?
Yep.
All right, sweet. So I'm gonna make the case now that the Eagles have the best offensive line coach in football. And you can make an argument if you want, but I'm gonna say that. And because they just, I mean, especially after the Mekhi Becton reclamation project this year, that just solidified it to me. But
Yeah.
so they took Mekhi Becton, who was a first round bust, and turned him into a borderline Pro Bowler, and hopefully they can do that with this guy. Now, this guy's ratings on the Pro Football Reference, he had a 5 his rookie season, solid, not spectacular. Didn't play at all his second season due to injury, and then missed 5 games due to injury this year and only had a 3. But it's the kind of season that would have been a 5 if he had played all 17. So he's been solid, nothing close to spectacular so far. Not a bust, but not great.
Okay. Okay. So you have there's hope that maybe they can do something with him.
Yeah, and I think he might be the guy that ends up playing right guard this year if they don't end up bringing back Becton. Becton hasn't signed with anybody yet. If they can get him back on the cheap, maybe they do that, or maybe they think this is the guy.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll have to see.
Yeah,
All right. Well, that
I
is
think
our
we did
free
it.
agency pod. It went very long.
It sure did, man. Holy mackerel! I didn't even realize it. Wow.
Yeah, we went very long, but we had a lot to talk about. We went through every single team, all the important moves. I'm glad we did it. We got it done. And this will probably be a rare time where we're probably not going to get another football podcast till like draft time, maybe a
I
little
would think
before.
like either one before or one after like maybe
I
one
think
before
I
and one
think
after.
yeah, I think one before to prep and get ready for it, and then then a reaction podcast for the draft in terms of what actually did happen. But until then, unless there's something like just earth shattering that happens, I don't see a need really to get to it.
I
Um,
agree.
yeah, I mean, this isn't our full time job, so we can, we can take some time off here and there, and we do it every year around this time. Once we get over this kind of stuff and all this is done, and the draft is coming, but it's still like 3-4 weeks away. We're gonna take a look, we're gonna take a few weeks off. So I think what we'll do is the week before the draft, or maybe right before the draft. The draft starts on a Thursday, right?
Yep, the draft is Thursday, April 24th.
So maybe
Maybe we do it Tuesday or Wednesday. Put it out
Tuesday
to
or
do it
Wednesday,
Tuesday. Put it out by Wednesday.
or maybe we can even do it Wednesday because I'm off on Wednesdays.
Oh yeah, that would work for me. I have one lesson at, or I have a couple lessons in the middle of the afternoon, and as of now, which can always change, but as of now, I'm done by 4.
Yeah, so look for it that Wednesday evening.
Nice.
We'll
That
record it
sounds good to
earlier
me.
on Wednesday, the day before, and then the following week when the draft will be over, and we'll go over what happened, and then we'll take it from there. Um, in the meantime, we're also going to get a baseball podcast with all of our predictions. We do that every year as well. Jordan will probably join us for that, and we'll predict all the standings and MVPs and World Series, all that stuff to get you ready for the baseball season.
Yeah, that's going to be fun, man. I love doing that. We're doing that. We're also doing top 10 closers coming up soon. So
Yep,
um,
on Jordan's podcast, the
on
baseline.
Jordan's pod, yep, the baseline. So yeah, it's going to be fun, man. Those baseball pods are fun. The predictions pod will be for the baseball on our pod will be great. So yeah, I can't wait, man. I was already dancing around the predictions in baseball a little bit, trying to figure out where I was going to go, and there's going to be some fun stuff to talk about.
Absolutely. And then after that, after we do the baseball preview and we do the draft stuff, then football really takes some time off. And that's probably where we'll get into some other stuff. We mentioned maybe we'll get into some music stuff about guitarists, maybe some lead singers. We'll talk about that. as we get closer. But that's a little bit off. We got a little bit of time for that. But just let you guys know that's also in the pike as well.
No doubt, and that'll be really fun to get to. I'll be. It'll be fun to see how many people follow us over to music discussion, and maybe we pick up some new people too talking about music. Who knows? I'm curious to see how that goes, but it'll be fun for us regardless.
Yes, it will. All right, man. Anything else to add?
No, man. I think I said everything I could say today. Thank you as always.
Of course, of course. Thank you for joining me. Thank you guys for sticking with us. It was a long one, like I said. And until next time, we'll see you later.